Tap that screen, tap that screen. If you disagree with what I have on the board, go ahead and come on up. If you disagree, with what I have on the board, go ahead and come on up. TikTok user, you could go ahead and come on up if you would like to talk about it. All right, Ricks, go ahead and come on up and we could definitely have a conversation. Hey, Ricks, you said that they're for weak people. I disagree. Go ahead and come on up and let's have that conversation so we can actually talk about that. All right, Ricks? All right. We have a user, or I'll call you TikTok, or what should I call you actually?
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
All right, user. How's it going? Are you at least 18? And did you disagree with what I have on the board?
Yeah, I'm 18. In order to disagree with you, I need to know what policies specifically. I mean, I think that pretty much all different sides of politics have good ideas and bad ideas. So what specific policies are you saying are better?
I'm saying things that are basically general everywhere else, but in America they're considered leftist. Things such as universal health care, maternity leave, investment into renewable energies in our infrastructure for we can have better public transportations, minimum wage tied to inflation in your area, unionization of the workplace, more unionization of the workplace, things like that I think will be better for society.
Okay, what is your what's the one that you're the most confident about?
Single payer.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm actually a big advocate of single payer, but I do find the majority of people who advocate for it, they just really do not have any idea what they're talking about. So, like, let me ask you this. Single payer healthcare, that would be like a large social system, correct?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Now, in terms of social systems, what in terms of managing them and making sure that they are implemented correct and that they run correctly, what's important?
To make sure things are implemented and run correctly. I would say
yeah, like what kind of controls do you have to have?
Well, of course, you have to have like professionals, right? Like anyone has to know, people have to know what they're doing. But you need professionals and you need proper funding. In general, those are the two.
Okay, I'm kind of talking in more of a basic kind of idea. Like, so for any social system, right, the idea is that everybody pays in something, or society funds it, and then people can use it.
Funding, yeah.
Right? Got it. Okay. And so in terms of social systems, you kind of have to know, one, how many people are going to have access to it, right? Because you have to be able to kind of like model, like, how much money do you think you're going to need for each person, right? Got it. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. What would a leftist policy be in terms of immigration?
For immigration, I think what it would basically be how you see. It depends on how far left you go. The current general mainstream left, what I would say is more liberal, is basically the James Tallarico version, where there's a welcome doormat but a lock on the front door. Basically, like, yeah, we welcome everybody to come in, but we're careful about who we're bringing in, which is pragmatic. It's the practical way to do it right now. If you go all the way to the left to anarchism, there are no borders at all. So it depends on which one you're talking about. I think most of the mainstream left in America, even those who identify as Marxist-Leninists, they would say because of the society that we live in, because of the way that we are, because of the way the world is right now, we would have to do basically the James Tallarico version, where we do have immigration, or like it's not very, very restrictive on, but like when I say restrictive, when I say not very restrictive, basically not what we're doing now. What we're doing now, I think, violates a lot of human rights, but essentially it'll be more of a like less red tape. You know what I mean? More of a queue. More like immigration more immigration judges, lawyers, and things like that to get rid of the red tape and process people in an orderly fashion.
And so this isn't really much of like a policy position. This is just more of kind of like a general direction that you're saying. And you're giving me basically a very vague answer because you're saying, well, some leftists advocate for essentially like open borders and they want like free flowing immigration anywhere. And then you're saying, but some other leftists, they actually think that we should have controls on immigration, which seems definitionally not leftist. So I'm curious. So what is your personal, like if you were to take over immigration, and there's a secondary question to this too. Do you think that the modern left in the United States, would they advocate that people who are already here illegally, would they advocate that they should be able to participate in social systems or not participate in them?
They should do it. I probably advocate they should participate in a social system because they're under the jurisdiction of the United States already. So the thing is, when
you see kind of the paradox here.
No, not really. But when it comes to my first answer, you have to understand that the left is a broad range. Even the right, I've met like anarcho-capitalists who also anarcho-capitalists are far to the right. They've even said that there shouldn't be any borders. You know what I'm saying? So it really depends on what type of leftist are you talking about. Are you talking about an anarchist, or are you talking about more of a leftist that understands like we're still in a status system? You know what I mean? If you're talking about the ones that we're still in a position of the state, yeah, they're gonna talk about the James Talarico version. Like everybody who's here already illegally, just go ahead and grant them amnesty, and everyone who's in line to come here, go ahead and just let's start processing them. We're gonna vet them, of course, but saying that, you know,
and see, so you can see the issue here, right?
It's not really an issue because that's not really a left or right issue. I think
I'll explain it to you when you're done talking.
I think everybody agrees that as if we're a nation that has borders, then immigrants are going to be processed. That's not really it's not the entire left saying, oh, open up the doors. It's really anarchists that are saying that. You know what I mean?
Because you're kind of just word salading now. Like I haven't really been able to respond.
Not really. I'm not word salading. I'm explaining my position. Yeah, anarchists believe that there should be no borders.
Well, you kind of are, because I'm asking you what your position is on immigration, and what you're telling me is
I told you the James Talarico version.
There are people out there.
I told you the James Talarico version. I told you
that's not really an answer.
I told you the James Talarico version because we still have a state. I told you that.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Okay. So with the James Talarico version, would that advocate for having like a cap on legal immigration, or would that advocate for just if we're doing the vetting, the number of immigrants doesn't really matter. It's just really that we're vetting the immigrants and we're getting the ones that I guess are acceptable.
No, I won't put a cap on it. I don't really care about caps.
Okay. So so unlimited, okay, got it. Okay. So you would prefer that there be free or unlimited legal immigration, meaning if somebody comes here, the US, as long as they I guess fit some kind of standard, like maybe they haven't committed violent crime, they should be allowed to enter the United States and become a citizen.
Yeah, sure. No,
right.
Sure.
That's what you just advocated for. That's what you said you support.
Yeah, that's ideally.
Well, that's what you support. It's not like an ideal. That's what you said you advocate for personally.
What, like unlimited legal immigration?
Yeah, that's what you literally just said. It just came out of your mouth.
Right.
You said you wouldn't put a cap on it.
Yeah, I won't put a cap on it. I won't care about that. No, it's okay. You're asking me what I believe or what I actually advocate for.
Those would kind of be synonymous in this sense. Yeah.
I don't think so. But yeah, sure. Go ahead.
You probably would advocate for what you believe unless you're just being disingenuous and you're lying. But
no, it wouldn't
assuming that you're advocating for things that you believe.
It wouldn't be disingenuous. It'll be more like understanding.
So now you're arguing semantics about
I'm not arguing semantics. Hold on, don't let me just ask you. All right. So like, yeah, sure. I wouldn't put a cap on immigration, right? But I understand that there are people who are not going to agree with that. So I will work with them, right? Like we live in a society.
So I'm not asking you I'm not asking you if you would work with the other side. I'm just asking you what you believe. Like, how does your ideology work? Okay. So
Yeah,
here's kind of my issue with this.
Yeah, we really care.
Okay, let me know. Do you want me to respond to you in substance, or like, can I respond?
You can respond, bro. But if you say something I think that you don't understand me, I'm gonna clarify. But yeah, personally, I wouldn't put a cap. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, there's not really much to be like left for interpretation. I asked you a simple question: would you cap legal immigration? You said no. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't care.
Okay, got it. Okay, so we wouldn't put a cap on legal immigration. Okay, and we also wouldn't be deporting any of the people who are already here, assuming that they fit the criteria that we would have for immigration, which we don't know. We haven't really got into that. Okay, so here's my issue. Really, really easy. Historically speaking, so there's historic precedent for this, and there's also just the numbers argument to this. If you allow in an unlimited amount of legal immigration, okay, how is it possible that you can have fully funded, functioning, secure social systems like single payer healthcare?
Are they paying taxes?
Well, we're talking about immigration, so we have a little bit of numbers on this, right?
They're going to be paying taxes, yeah, and we know that immigrants.
This would actually depend.
We know that immigrants contribute to our tax system, so they pay taxes.
Yeah, okay, so they do contribute in some sense. That's correct.
Not in some sense. They contribute.
Right, and what do they take off of the system? Sure. Okay, let me ask you this: in terms of immigration, do you recognize that the tax inputs that maybe let's talk about like H-1B1 visa workers who are immigrants who work here? Okay. Right. So these are people who they're literally coming over here because they're going to get paid probably a pretty good amount of money to do a specialized job that they can't fill with Americans. Right. So these are typically high paying jobs. These are people who are going to come here and they're immediately going to be able to pay in because they have a job and they're already set up. Okay. And they're at the top of the labor market because they're specialized. Okay. So they get paid a lot of money. So when you look into the data in terms of immigration, this is kind of the interesting part. We use a lot of H-1B workers and they contribute a lot in taxes. Okay. But these are much different than some of the regular legal immigrants and the illegal immigrants. Okay.
Yeah, but they
so for instance, if we look at hang on. Let me make my point. You have to let me finish. If you watch any of the congressional hearings, they actually break down by country what percentage of the people who immigrate here are on social systems like welfare, food stamps, benefits, housing, anything like that, okay? So we already know that the idea that immigrants pay into the system and they're a net positive is that argument only works if we're talking about the top immigrants, which are usually H-1B workers, people who are migrating here for specialized work. All of the other people, like let's say the people who are coming out of Syria, who are immigrating here because the country is in turmoil, okay? These people do not have guaranteed jobs when they get here. And when they get here, they're in a land where they don't know anybody. They don't know how the culture works. They don't know how the system works. They don't know how the economic system works. And so we find that the vast majority of these people end up basically being taken care of by taxpayers, at least in the beginning of when they get here. So let me ask you this. If you had unlimited legal immigration, and you can't guarantee that if you allow unlimited legal immigration, you can't guarantee one way or the other that they're going to be a net draw or a net positive for taxes. You only know that once they get here and they start paying taxes or they don't, okay? So what kind of protections would you have to make sure that the massive amount of legal immigration doesn't bankrupt social systems like single-payer healthcare?
All right. Well, the first thing that you made a lot of claims, right? You said that when it comes to the taxes inputting, that's really the top echelon, the H-1B ones and the folks like that, right? But that's not true. All of the other ones also pay taxes, and that's also been shown as well, right? They all pay taxes into the system. It's not just the H-1Bs, because you're not going to get $20 billion a year.
Okay, what taxes do they pay?
Hold on. You're not going to get $20 billion a year just from the H-1Bs. That's not going to happen, right? So it's like they're all paying.
What taxes do they pay?
Okay, they pay income and to the Social Security tax as well. So it's not just going to be from the H-1Bs. All right,
in order to pay into Social Security, you have to be W-2.
When we're talking about legal immigrants, That means that income taxes.
Yeah, but you're also saying that you would.
We're talking about when we're talking about. I didn't interrupt you during the 3 minutes you were talking, bro. When we're talking about legal immigrants, right? They're also going to be paying income taxes, Medicare, Social Security, etc. Even illegal immigrants pay into those at times because of the type of number that they get if they don't get a social as well, right? So they're all paying into the system. That's number one. But number two, this has been shown over and over again that more immigrants boost up the tax base. So when you're saying how do we guarantee that it's not going to go bankrupt, everyone is paying into it. Like they're all even the immigrants. So it's like I'm not sure what you're asking, because it's like you're saying that only the top. I'm not sure what you're asking, because it's like you're saying that only the top echelon immigrants are going to be paying taxes, but that's not true. Here that are illegal, if we make them legal, they're going to be paying into the income tax and the Medicare taxes as well.
Sure. Okay, let me ask you this. What do you need to pay taxes? What do you need to pay into the system?
A Social Security number or an ITN?
Sure. Okay, and what do you, okay,
or
sure.
EIN,
okay, one step further.
EIN,
so what else would you need?
A job.
Okay, and then one step further, what else would you need to pay in?
That's it. A job, a Social Security, a EIN.
Okay, I'll try this a different way. Where do the dollars that you're paying in come from?
Your job?
Yep, that's exactly right. Okay, so do you see maybe where this is going? Not sure.
No. So you're saying that like a lot of people are not going to have jobs, they're going to be unemployed?
Well, I'm suggesting a couple of different things. Like one, if people come here, and like I said earlier, there's different kinds of people who come here. Some come here and they have a job, right? Some come here and they get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some come here and they don't get a job. Now, if we just use current numbers and we just say, well, because these are the current numbers, we're just going to use these and we're going to extrapolate this to unlimited immigration. Right? That's kind of a really, really, really bad way of doing things, don't you think?
Do most of the immigrants have jobs?
Well, legal immigrants, we could track that, but we couldn't track illegal immigrants.
Well, we can actually look up. Well, I think we actually can. We can see if most illegal immigrants work. A lot of them work under the table.
Okay, I should actually rephrase it. Someone can guess. They can try and research the question, but they can never give you a definitive answer.
They give you a definitive answer. You have to estimate. Even for legal immigrants, you have to estimate. Even for like Americans, like this is kind of crazy. Give me 1 second. All right, yeah. So when it comes to like even the unemployment numbers are all estimates,
just explain
right?
to me, how do you think that they would give you a definitive number?
So hold on. What I'm saying is that when it comes to these numbers, most of them are estimates. You understand that too, right?
Well, that's kind of what I'm pointing out, is that there are some things where we're not estimating, and then there's other things where we're estimating.
No, they're all estimated.
So for instance, legal immigrants, we have a name and we have a social security number and we have an address and a contact for everybody who comes here and legally immigrate. So we could potentially know definitively what every immigrant is doing, okay? Illegal immigrants, you don't have that control. So you don't know anything for sure, right? So all of the economic numbers, anything that is ever said to you, well, they drain social systems or they contribute into social systems, that is purely speculation. And it's purely speculation when you take into account that. Not necessarily. Okay. No. Okay. So go ahead and prove to me that it's not speculation.
Like I said.
Okay. Then prove it. It's not easy.
Like I said, majority of this stuff when it comes to employment.
Hold on. So go ahead.
I'm explaining the majority of the stuff that we're talking about when it comes to jobs, unemployment, employment. Most of it is estimates. Even our unemployment number is an estimate. You see what I'm saying? So like, but the estimates are
That's not what I'm talking about, though.
The estimates are very, very close. We can say that, But when I know when you say, when you're talking about employment, actual
No, you're totally wrong.
That's an estimate.
No, you're changing the entire argument right now.
It's an estimate. I'm telling you,
Yeah, you are.
Even employment for American citizens are an estimate.
What specifically did I ask you what we would measure? What specifically?
You asked me how we measure the legal immigrants who have, or legal or illegal immigrants who have jobs. How
will we measure their employment rate?
We estimated. We have to do some sort of research. I don't know the research they actually do.
Estimated,
but I don't know the research they actually do.
That's exactly right. So
I know, and I'm saying that even when it comes to American citizens, that's also an estimate.
Not necessarily.
TikTok. Listen what I'm saying to you.
Holy fuck!
Even when it comes to American TikTok, even when it comes to American citizens, that's an estimate. So it's not necessarily that is speculation, not necessarily, because the legal immigrants are an estimate, American citizens are an estimate, illegal immigrants are an estimate. It's an estimate.
Yeah, I think that you might have forgot what you said, because I said that the numbers that you see in terms of illegal immigrants paying into taxes, are
an estimate,
or any of these numbers.
But you're saying it's a speculation. I'm saying not necessarily. It's an estimate. Not necessarily speculation.
I said it's speculative, which is when somebody is estimating, and you said not necessarily.
Because we estimate everything. We estimate the jobs even American citizens have. You're not going to say. You're not going to say the unemployment rate is speculation. You're not going to say the unemployment rate is an explanation.
Oh my God, are you fucking retarded?
You're not. Yes, you are. You very are. Yes, you very are. Yes, you are. When it comes to when I say don't
know the difference between those two words.
Okay, so because you're using slurs on my stage, you're gonna go ahead and get dropped down. So that's just period. Don't use slurs on my platform. Grow up like a big boy. You don't have to use slurs. It's okay. Everything is all right, my friend. Woosah. We don't use slurs up here. Ableism has no room on my platform. All right, guys, give me 1 second. Yeah, I have a lump on my head because I got into an accident. I was hit by a car not last year. I was hit by a car almost 2 years ago, and I almost lost my life. So that's why I have a lump on my head. This lump on my head has been here for the past 2 years. It reminds me every day to be thankful to be alive. All right, y'all, we're going to go ahead and we're going to wait for more people to come up. If you're watching this over on the YouTube, the guest request is in the comments. You can go ahead and join in the guest request. I'm going to add the guest request to the Twitch and the TikTok in a second. If you'd like to join in over on Twitch and TikTok, I'm going to go ahead and put the guest request button in a second. If you're over on YouTube, the guest request is right there. You can go ahead and come on up. Hey, Big Mo, you've been here complaining for a while. Go ahead and come up since you want to bitch and moan. Also, I want to give a big shout out to KMB. KMB on my last stream, he did donate $99. Thank you so much, KMB, for that donation. Thank you so much for that donation, KMB, for the last time you came up here. I hope you're watching. I appreciate it, KMB. To join, the link is in the description. Link is right there if you'd like to join over on the TikTok, or the guest request button is right there if you'd like to join over on the TikTok. Over on YouTube, you can look in the description. You will see the link to join in over on the YouTube, and we can talk and have a conversation. If you're watching me over on the Deconstruction Junction, shout out to you. I appreciate it. And if you're watching over on the Volcy Thoughts, I appreciate you.
Oh, nice. I'm early.
Yeah, you're early. How's it going? Let me take a look at something real quick. All right, give me 1 second. They told me I have to center my prompt. Let me take a look at here. Okay, the prompt.
Yeah, it is a little off center.
It's a little off center. I'm looking at it on my phone. I'm looking at my phone. It looks like that it's pretty centered.
Oh, it looks better there. All right, I don't know. Maybe it's just me then.
Okay, it's better. All right, cool. Not a problem. All right, cool. I appreciate you being up here. Jorge, how's it going? Are you at least 18? And did you disagree with what I have on the board?
Yeah, I'm 32, and I definitely disagree.
All right, cool. Leftist policies are better for society.
Yeah, when I think of leftist policies, I mean, I mostly think of economic policies like price controls, like, you know, things like rent controls, high taxation. What else? I don't know. I guess just very like interventionist, statist policies, right? And I think that generally speaking, it's pretty bad for society because, for example, wage controls, right? Like minimum wage laws. All the literature I've read on it seems to indicate that it actually disproportionately affects minorities and low-income people because it essentially makes it illegal for them to work.
No, it doesn't.
That's an example of a leftist policy.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make it illegal.
It does.
No, it doesn't.
Functionally, it does, because it's essentially what the policy, even though it might be well-intentioned, what the policy ends up doing is if you can't, you know, let's say your labor is only worth $14, $15 an hour and the minimum wage law is at 25, what it essentially does is increase unemployment because you make it illegal for them to actually hold a job. So we see this in California. In California, they just passed.
So how come we see in places that raise unemployment that we don't see, raise a minimum wage, we don't see a raise in unemployment?
We did. That California raised it 2 years ago. I live in California. They raised it to $20. There was about 18,000 employees that have lost their jobs, and small businesses have closed.
I live in Florida. I live in Florida where we raised the minimum wage and that didn't happen. So what happened?
What's the minimum wage in Florida? Minimum
wage in Florida is
and when was
15.
It raised?
It was raised back in 2015, I think, or 2010. And I think the minimum wage, right now is at 10 or 11. I have to check it back and make sure. But the minimum wage always goes up, and we don't see now. If you go from 15 to 25 in a week, yeah, it's gonna shock the system. You're gonna see unemployment, right? But that's the way it never works. Unemployment is a lot more. Well, that's a lot more different than
the leftists.
That's not what the left advocates for. It doesn't say just raise it $25 in one day.
That is what they advocated for in New York and California.
Not all at once. We know that it has to be implemented. No one says to raise it all at once. You understand. In California, that was a stupid policy. You can't raise it all at once. You're going to shock the system. If that happens, then of course you're going to shock the system and have cause unemployment. But if you raise it gradually, that's not going to happen, is it?
Maybe to not the same degree, but overall, I don't think that the government has any business in setting a price control on a wage. I think that these wages are better determined by the market, not by bureaucrats. So I think that like leftist policy in general seems to be just counterintuitive.
But they're not, though, because it's like we've seen that the market can't regulate itself.
We've seen that it can.
No,
I mean, you need some laws, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. So if we need some laws, so Jorge, if we need some laws, that literally means it can't regulate itself. You need some laws.
Capitalism requires laws, like property rights are laws,
which means it can't regulate itself.
That's not what it means, because you can have negative rights, like you can have the concept of America, like with the Constitution and property rights, and still have a free market that can self-regulate.
It can't self-regulate, bro.
Coexist.
Like they can't self, because we've seen this over. We've seen it over and over in history. In the past, we had child labor. The market can't regulate itself.
I mean, the child labor primarily exists in places that are not capitalist.
It existed in America, and we were capitalist.
It existed, but I think it's overstated to like.
No, it's not, bro. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. We had kids working in factories, bro, and we were capitalists. matter of fact, you can't even say that it happens in places that
sure,
are not capitalist.
and you can say that that's like this
because sweatshops in the third world are capitalist countries.
Like depends
yeah,
what you mean.
they're capitalist countries.
Like which country?
Capitalism is private
Which
ownership of the
country
means
is
of
a capitalist
Haiti.
country?
Capitalism is private ownership of the means of production, right?
Yes, it is. That's what these definition. Yeah.
That's what a lot of these third world countries, that sweatshops have. Private ownership.
Yeah, I mean, they have sweatshops, but I don't think that it doesn't seem to me that the product of capitalism isn't that, oh, we're gonna have sweatshops for children. The product of capitalism is our material condition is going to improve to a point where we don't need children to work, because children worked before capitalism or before social or before any of these economic structures existed, right?
Yeah.
Children working is something that is true about human nature. I mean, people working is just something that is inherent.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Humanity.
No, I agree with that,
So
right? But what I'm saying is
my point is that
what I'm saying is this.
Yeah.
An unmitigated market is not going to regulate itself, because we've seen what that caused. It has always caused things like child labor, the Ford Pinto, or industry capture or robber barons, where they literally lied and said that cigarettes don't cause cancer, and we know that they do. You know what I'm saying? Like, because because the reason why they did that is because they knew that it would affect their profit if people knew that it caused cancer. You see what I'm saying? So like unmitigated capitalism causes profit over people. So which is why we need laws and regulations.
Look, for sure there's going to be people that trying to sell you shit that, you don't need, or that's bad for you for money. But again, that's not a feature of capitalism. That's a feature of human nature, right? Like that concept predates capitalism.
Right. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to
the concept of meat,
when it comes to capitalism, right, the entire point of capitalism is constant growth. And you can't have constant growth if you don't feed into the worst parts of human nature. You have to.
I mean, I agree that, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I guess my disagreement is that when you then have leftist policy on top of this system, right? I don't see any leftist policy. And you can even look at rent control. This is another one that's like very common. Rent controls disproportionately, drive people out of, they make it so that tenants, it's harder to rent, the supply goes down. It's good for a very substrata of people that already have a house that they can live in. And for everyone else, it just completely removes supply and balloons the prices. So that's an example of leftist policy. Like you'll see every leftist say yes, we need to control landlords, the ability for landlords to charge rent, and we need to control that for through the state, and have the state buy up property.
Gotcha. How about
that's a leftist policy?
Yeah, how about the
that's a leftist policy?
Yeah, hold on, give me a second. Give me a second. How about
that's a leftist policy?
Hold on, buddy. How about the leftist policy that goes after slumlords that have their tenants living in squalor? Why is the rent control? Yeah, sure. Rent control can become a problem. No, I'm not denying that, right? Rent control can become a problem.
It's always a problem, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I'm not denying that it can become a problem if you the way that it's implemented. But you gotta stay on mute because your background is loud. So I understand that rent control can become a problem that the way it's implemented, especially the way that we see it in New York.
Fixing my rental house.
Hey, buddy, you gotta be quiet, bro. It's not your turn yet. So when it comes to rent control, I understand how that can become an issue, especially the way that it's implemented in a place like New York City.
Yeah, it's my turn.
However, it's not your turn, buddy. You do that again, I'm just gonna drop you. Be an adult, bro. So however, there are also leftist policies that not just saying just go after the landlords. It also goes after slumlords that have, for example, have you heard of the Hell House in New York City and the Bronx, where the building owner hasn't fixed the AC, hasn't fixed the heat. People are living without toilets at all, stuff like that, right? Would you agree with going after those type of people for them to fix up their building?
No.
Why not?
No, because what you end up let me get this
straight. You're saying
let me explain.
You're saying that if a landlord owns a property where the toilets don't work and there's sewage on the floor, you shouldn't go after the landlord for having their tenant live in that type of dangerous condition?
Well, no, the key distinction here is that I wouldn't, this is a self-correcting thing because the tenants can, for example, sue. You don't need the state to get involved in order to fix that. The tenants can
Who
move.
has more money?
The market fixes.
Hold on, wait.
What's that?
Why should the tenants have to move? Why shouldn't?
Because
hold on. Pause. Jorge, who has more money? The tenant or the landlord?
Between the landlord.
The landlord has more money, which means that hold on. The tenant can sue the landlord, right? But in the legal system, who has more an advantage navigating the system? People without money or people with money?
It depends on the case. There's plenty of cases where the people with money.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Actually,
when it comes to this specific issue, the person who has money is going to win out most of the time. I know that because I used to work for a real estate lawyer, and he told me that I seen it myself. The one who has money is going to win out most of the time. Because you know why? They're gonna bury you in, and motions cost time.
Yes,
which is why I'm
if you don't have capital.
Yeah, exactly. This is the problem, though. What I'm saying is that motions cost money.
Let me get a word.
I got you, Jorge. What I'm saying is that motions cost money, motions cost time, and for people who are poor and cannot afford that, suing them is not an option. Moving is not an option because moving also costs money. That's why the laws are mostly on the tenant side.
And guess what? The landlords know that as well, which is why they're doing what they're doing because they know that they won't be held accountable.
Again, I disagree. When you have capital, it's very tempting for people to go after it, especially when you're doing something wrong that is illegal. If you're keeping people intentionally, if this either goes into negligence or whatever legal, I'm sure there's in New York, there's tons of legal avenues for this, and including law firms that would take this up. Wait, let me just finish. There's a lot of law firms that would take this up pro bono because it's good for them, right? Because it makes them look like, hey.
Oh my God.
So
you did not know.
So Jorge,
are you saying that pro bono lawyers have this? You get the same result with pro bono lawyers as you do with a landlord that has money behind them and can pay for a good quality lawyer. Are you saying that pro bono lawyers get the same quality?
That's not my point. Hold on.
Everybody pause. Yeah. So Jorge, hold on, buddy. It's not your turn yet. So Jorge, I get what you're saying, right?
You're a good.
It's not your turn yet. So I get what you're saying, right? Jesus fucking Christ. All right. So
I'm about to drop him as well. Because for those of you that come up here, when the host or me or any other mods give you directions, follow them or you're gonna immediately be dropped.
Yeah.
Do not come up here being disrespectful.
Yeah.
Even I, a mod, right? I respect the host. If you see how when Volcy tells me to be quiet, I be quiet because it's not my space.
Yeah.
Come up here, have some coof, and act like your parents raised you with some manners. You're essentially coming into this man's house. And then I'm like, and telling him how to run his shit.
Exactly. All right, let's continue. So when it comes to the entire thing about suing and moving, right? All that takes money, Jorge, and you can't simply say oh, like they can just go to a pro bono lawyer. If that
New York specifically in 2023, the New York City Law Department actually sued multiple landlords on behalf of thousands of residents, and it was pro bono and they were successful. And it was things like mold, vermin, collapsed ceilings, lack of heat, like some of the stuff that you were talking about, broken elevators. there's the city or certain law firms absolutely proactively take these cases because they know that it's such a slam dunk case, and then they know that a lot of these slumlords have assets to actually go after. So we're not
denying that it doesn't happen. We're not denying that that it won't happen, right? We're not denying that it don't happen. But what I am saying is that is as simple as that, because these cases take years, bro. That's what I'm saying. In the meantime, where's people gonna go?
And look, I mean, to be honest, New York is one of the most expensive places in the country. You can move, people move for a reason.
People move, but moving is expensive, man. You understand? Moving is expensive.
It's less expensive than trying to live in New York, though. Like,
not necessarily. It's like, not necessarily, because where are they going to move to?
Yeah, it is.
Where would they move to?
It's a huge state. It's a huge state.
I understand that. I understand
surrounding.
That. I get that, right? But you still have to move all your things. You like if living in New York City,
right.
If living in New York City doesn't take a lot of time, and just moving to another building is going to take you a day or two. But however, moving to Buffalo is going to take you a month, and you got to move all your stuff, and you got to find a job over there. A lot of people are going to take the path of less resistance, just stay in New York City. So just move is not always an answer.
I mean, it depends on your living condition. I wouldn't. If your living conditions are so poor and you're being taken advantage of, yeah, you would absolutely take up litigation, which is very common in New York, by the way, against landlords, like for tenants to take up litigation. And you could also move, and you would probably be in a much better position. And this is something that is resolved through market mechanisms, not through the government.
But suing is the government.
Not I mean, depends. It can be, but not always.
Our courts are
in some cases.
Courts are not private arbiters.
Can be, but not always.
Our courts are not.
In some cases,
our courts are not private arbiters.
You're right. Do you know how the government works?
Yeah, you're missing my point.
Can everybody hear me? Everybody still here?
Oh, good.
Okay, we good. All right, cool. All right, yeah. So yeah, let's.
Volcy, you're popular today. Very popular.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so
everyone want a piece of that bald head today.
Yeah, no, there. It's all over what's that they call again? It's all over on my YouTube. They keep talking about the size of my head. I keep telling them they mama like it. So anyway,
I'm like, child, but I was talking about the size of your head. Your head is not even that big, to be honest.
Yeah, always. All right, so
I still can't believe how short you are, though.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
I still can't imagine in my head.
I know,
I have to actually remind myself.
You'll see when you see me. Yeah,
I'm like because it's gonna be weird because I'm probably gonna be in heels or like something, and I'm already 5'10". It's weird being taller than me.
yeah, I know. All right. What was I? What were we? Okay, yeah. Back to the landlords. I get it, right? I get that there are times where there's overregulation, especially in a market system. That is true. There's overregulation in the market system. So the regulations that we already have, let's go ahead and make them stronger, or let's reform them. Like rent control. Rent control does cause an issue in New York City because it doesn't keep up with inflation. Zoning laws don't change because of it. So we should go ahead and add those things into it. Let's keep up with inflation and change our zoning laws, and then rent control work, right?
No.
Why not? Because I live in Florida where we don't have rent control, and if someone buys my grandma's house right now, he can raise the rent from $3,000 to $7,000 and give her 90 days to move out. Do you see the problem there?
No, like
nothing wrong with it.
I see a major problem there.
People
that causes homelessness.
Property. If you can't control what you do with your property, you don't really own it, right?
Sure you do.
So like you don't. No, if the government is controlling what you own, you don't actually own it. So this goes against a very American principle of private property rights.
But the issue is like there's always going to be that type of regulation because that affects most of society, right? If like for example in my situation that I'm talking about right now, where we don't have rent control in Florida, you know what that has caused? That's caused homelessness directly, because there are people who will buy a property or buy a buildings, raise the rent that nobody could afford, and then all people who are living there are asked out. So it affects society when they do that.
Disagree completely.
What do you mean disagree completely?
They have homelessness.
Yeah, here's what I mean. Here's what I mean. Homelessness is highest in the most rent-controlled places in the country.
Understood New York, that because there's a lot of people there. There are more people in San Francisco and in New York. But what I'm saying is that in Miami, we have a huge homeless problem, and that's caused by the fact that rents are rising and there's no control on it.
Controls would make the problem worse, like we see in the progressive cities. So the problem is worse than it is in Miami.
Did you hear he said there's population size, not policy?
You can account for population size easily.
So let me get this straight. You're saying that in a city where like Miami, which is a major city, which has some of the highest rent comparable to New York City and San Francisco, where they do not have rent control and have some of the highest homelessness in the country, are you saying that rent control is the problem? Yeah. Miami has something called like those are called silent homeless or hotel homeless, where people are basically living in hotels. The homeless population in Miami, if you Google it, the official one is 3,000, but the unofficial, people who are living in hotels and stuff like that, is close to 60,000. There's tons of homeless people down here.
Living in a hotel does not make you homeless. But anyways,
are you in a home?
Do you? What are you talking about? Do you know the legal definition of homelessness? If you're living in a hotel and have no place to live, how is that not homeless?
Are you making an argument that New York City has less of a homeless?
No, that's not what I'm arguing.
Liberal places have less.
That's not what I'm arguing, Deb. That's not what I'm arguing.
I'm like, oh my God, bro. Deb, if you come off of me one more time before you get introduced.
I mean, if we just to kind of zoom out of it, because I'm looking at the Miami homeless rate, and I guess if you include hotels, sure, you could that number could raise a little bit, but it's saying that it's 3,000 to 4,000 in Miami-Dade County. By the way, this is an entire county.
Yeah,
it's not just Miami. That's extremely low, like compared to Seattle, Portland, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, like yada yada yada. Like
there's one of the people there, so Yeah, but the thing is though, what I'm saying is that when you have no type of control on the rent, the cost of living can still rise, correct?
No.
How do you explain Florida then? How do you explain Florida?
Because tons of people, Florida has, next to Texas, has had the most immigration, like people migrating into it since C19 than any other state aside from Texas. And obviously,
you think that's raising the cost?
Of course, if hundreds of thousands of people move to a state and it's the same, yeah.
So
if
then
demand
how do you
is higher,
explain Texas?
Because they have amazing they're building. They're out
Because we have a great job
building
market.
more than the people are coming in.
Right.
And you can
so the issue is not about issue. It's a supply issue. So it's not a rent control issue. It's a supply issue.
Rent control limits supply because it makes it economically not viable to build houses.
Right.
You're not going to be able to profit on.
No, I agree with that. The rent control that happens in New York City that doesn't keep up with inflation or doesn't account for zoning laws, that's a problem. I agree with that, right? But if you
supply,
but the main thing that limits supply in the states is zoning laws, not rent control.
In LA, it's zoning laws, and
all over the country is zoning laws.
Rent control is also super negative for the cities.
I'm not talking about. Okay, I understand it. What I'm talking about is when it comes to nationally, right, and in cities, rent control is not the main driver. It's supply, which is caused by which is the zoning issue. Zoning issue is the main driver.
I think here's where we're talking past each other. Rent control limit.
Can I ever get a chance to
rent
talk?
control has a negative effect on supply. It's I'll let
not always. What I'm saying is that the way that rent control. What I'm saying is that rent control, the way that it's implemented in New York City, yeah, that can be negative because again, it doesn't account for inflation. It doesn't account for zoning laws. But if you account for those two things, you can it can work out. That's what I'm saying.
That's where we.
All right. So do we see any city where those two things are taken into consideration and it's still negative?
Yes, there's cities without zoning laws that have tried rent controls. You can look at internationally. They've tried it in the Nordic countries. They've tried it in Argentina. They've tried it in a lot of countries. Rent control has never reduced price. All it does is reduce affordability.
Okay, so where have they? You said in the
Nordic
countries.
Hold on, Jeff. I dropped you not because we don't allow arguments. We're having an argument right now. I dropped you because you couldn't follow directions. And the direction was to stay on mute until you were introduced because Volcy was talking to George. I'm like, how many times do I have to tell y'all to act like your mama and daddy raised you with some manners and some goddamn couth? I know black parents raise their children with manners. I can't tell you about the rest of y'all. But I know, did your mama not tell you? When you come into someone's house, you say hello, and and you don't speak until you're spoken to. You follow directions and the rules of someone's house. The rules are when you come up on the panel, you wait until the host or a mod introduce you. Stay your ass on mute. And I gave you plenty of chances to follow directions. So don't be crying in the goddamn comments. Talking about people are soft and can't handle fucking arguments. Because that's not why your ass was fucking dropped. Because I told your ass to stay on mute until you were introduced. Now I'm like, this is why everyone that comes to Volcy's lives loves to say I'm a fucking bitch. Because y'all don't know how to follow directions. And then when I enforce the rules of the host, now I'm a fucking bitch. Because your ass don't have no fucking self-control. Y'all are too grown for that. He sounded more grown than me. Sounds like he could be old enough to be my daddy. The fuck?
So, Volcy, I get what you're saying. Like, if you have bad zoning, rent controls makes it like the bad zoning makes the rent control even worse. I get what you're saying, but there are examples of places that didn't have zoning. Stockholm, for example, they had little to no zoning laws, and rent control still increased the rent, and it made for extremely long wait lists and black markets, etc. So, like, yes, there's certain factors like what you're saying that make it worse, but rent control is still a major factor and part of the problem. Like, if New York were like completely got rid of rent control, you would see prices go down. Like, regardless if they touch zoning, if they also improve zoning, you would see prices go down. But both of those things can be true, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I don't know. These are leftist, and by the way, these are leftist policies. This is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think these policies are good for anyone.
Right. So when it comes to that particular one, we can look more into that to see what could work and what couldn't work. But rent control is not the only leftist policy, is it?
Well, I mean, generally they want high taxation. They want high government programs. Like, they want more and more and more programs. They essentially want to move capital from the private sector into the public sector. And I think all of that is very negative because the public sector has a pretty poor, the incentive structure is just not as good as it is in the private sector. I'm not saying the private sector is perfect, but I think it's much more preferable than the public sector.
The incentive in the private sector is just to make more money.
To make profit, yes.
All right.
Yeah, but unfortunately that incentive is better than the public one, which is no incentive.
But the incentive is in the public one is not no incentive, is to make a better service for society.
A better service that usually makes the problem worse. Like we see, like in California, homeless, they spent $20 billion in homeless. The problem is worse because there's
right. But
every time the problem gets worse, they get more money.
But what exactly did they do? Well, what did they do to solve their homeless problem?
I mean, essentially these are other leftists. They implemented other leftist policies like harm reduction or like safe needle injections. These policies,
but that's not really telling me what they did, because like
they took the money.
Because the homelessness is an issue of like no homes, right? So did they build more homes, or what did they do? Like, or was it an issue of addiction? And if it was an issue of addiction, did they open up centers in order to get people off of addiction? Did they give people money in order to give them more homes? What did they do?
They gave people drugs, and that's the safe injection and the safe, and what's the OD drug, that Narcan and stuff. And they go and they intervene, and the philosophy is like, oh, let's wean them off by, I guess, giving them the drug. And the problem has exploded. Like, homelessness is up, like it's hundreds of thousands of people higher than it was a few years ago.
Right, but is that because of the weaning them off of drugs, or is it because of the affordability issue? We just can't say it's because of weaning them off of drugs.
Affordability is a huge part of it, but leftist policies have made this state unaffordable because of the housing, the zoning laws,
the zoning laws, exactly. But zoning laws are not a leftist thing. Zoning laws is a race thing.
Democrats have the heaviest zoning laws in the nation are all Democrat cities, like San Francisco, New York.
Racism.
Sure, I mean, you could call it that, I guess. But
that's where zoning laws came from. They came from racism. Like, I'm not even kidding.
No, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that the left believes in that. That's what the left believes.
The left doesn't believe in zoning laws.
That's who protects it. The zoning laws are mostly in Democrat, like in uni-party states where only Democrats can win.
White cities, right?
I mean, we have
racism.
A white population, like,
racism.
I guess.
Racism. So it's not about leftism, bro. It's about racism. I don't care about like saying like living a Democrat doesn't mean that it's the left. Like, Democrats can be racist.
I'm not. I guess I just think that racism is a little.
It's like racism. Kind of reductive. Zoning laws, highways, they all came from racism.
But then, how do you explain zoning laws in places that are not? I guess like in different countries or whatever. Like it's. I don't think it's always.
Well, I'm talking about America. We're
talking about America, and because America is different than other places. I don't know, and race also works differently in other places. In those places,
yeah. But in America, the zoning laws, the highway system was all due to racism. But yeah, when you say that the left believes in zoning laws, they actually don't. The left is the one pushing to change these zoning laws, and the suburbanites in these areas are the ones who don't want to change them. Like NIMBYism. Like not in my backyard. It's because of that type of stuff that they don't want to change. But the left in general wants to change those zoning laws to have like more multifamily housing and stuff like that.
it's not just, but I think you're putting too much weight on zoning law, because something that you're in favor for that you said earlier was more regulations. It's also like the more regulation you have, there's no such thing as a regulation that makes things cheaper. Every regulation you add,
I think you misunderstood what I said. I want the regulations we already have to be stronger, because we already have regulation, but
what
a
does
lot
that
of
mean?
it, a lot of it is a slap on the wrist. Like, for example,
So you're saying the punishments to be worse?
Yes,
for
that's
them?
why I said landlords should be landlords who have shitty units and put their tenants in danger should be thrown in jail instead of giving them a fine. Throw them in jail.
I guess I just don't really think you're fixing any problem, but sure. I mean, I'm fine with it. I just don't see how that has to do with the problem of cost and affordability.
Yeah, cost and affordability is something that we need to address, and affordability will happen if we have more supply, and that would change with things such as the zoning laws, such as you said rent control is still a problem. That's true. Yeah, I mean, like I understand the rent control, especially how it happens in New York, is a big problem. We need to change that. There are things we could look into in order to. We need to build more homes. Basically, there are things we need to look into in order to increase to decrease the cost of housing, to increase affordability. We need to address those things, right? But it's not all just about we have to regulate things now. We have there are different ideas. One of the main ideas that comes from the left is to build more multifamily housing, to change more of the zoning laws, and that would increase the supply of housing and decrease the rental costs. We also have to look into like renting cartels, because that was shown in I think it was a recent, I think when it was Biden was president, the housing authority actually looked into it and saw that they were deliberately increasing the rent by basically taking some of their units off of the rental sites, and that would increase the rent on purpose, even though they had empty units out there. You see what I'm saying? So stuff like that.
Yeah, they're manipulating supply.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens. But would you agree? Would you agree that deregulation would also reduce cost?
It depends on what. I agree with the rent control. Maybe I think that may decrease costs. Yeah. It really depends on what.
Yeah, sure, fair enough. Did you read the book Abundance by Ezra Klein by chance?
Not yet. It's on my Amazon list though.
Yeah, he goes into this topic like in depth, and like I don't agree with his politics per se, but like he comes to the very similar conclusions where it's like it's mostly a regulatory / zoning / like affordability is actually, it's not this complicated thing. Like the problem is in a large part rent controls, not the absence of, which you're saying in Miami there's no rent controls and that's a problem. I would argue that the problem would be 10 times worse if there was rent controls. That's my argument.
I mean, the thing is, the rent control that I would put in, I don't think is unreasonable. Just that you can't raise the rent from 3,000 to 9,000 and get them 30 days to move. That's insane. You know what I mean? Like
the only way that would happen is the only way that would happen is like if you completely demoed a site and like built a like something that's like 3 times the size with new amenities and whatever. Like you can't.
They don't do that.
Like
that's what I'm saying. In Florida, it's Wild West. When in Hialeah, they even said it.
I'm from Florida. I don't think it is the Wild West. Like I grew up in Florida. It's a very affordable. I mean, I'm not saying every single place. Like obviously, there's places in Miami. There's areas that are very expensive, but compared to Los Angeles, like it's night and day.
Yeah, I know. It's way more expensive in Los Angeles. But what I'm saying is that when it comes to this issue, right? There was even an article in Miami Herald that showed this. This happens several times, where these builders or these investors or whatever, they will just buy up a house in Hialeah or Overtown somewhere and raise the rent from 1,500 to 5,000 and give the tenants 5 days, not 5 days, but 30 days to move out, because that's the minimum you have to give them, 30 days. And they would do this over and over and over again until people start to complain, and then it moved to 90 days. You see what I'm saying? So it was these are some of the issues that we deal with when you could just do whatever with the property. You don't even have to build anything. Just buy it, raise the rent, and say get out. You know what I'm saying? So you really have to do anything. Like now there are more laws being put in place because people's abuelas were getting kicked out the house. You see what I'm saying? So now there's more things put in place, but that's what I'm saying. Stuff like that is what I mean. You see what I mean?
I get what you're saying. I just still think that like the left, the philosophy of the left on this stuff is counterproductive. It's not going to achieve the outcome that they want, and I think that's self-evident. Like when you look at the most left-wing areas in this country, they're the most unlivable, like unaffordable. Like luckily, I work in tech in California. I would not live here if I wasn't insulated from this shit. Like it would be impossible to live here. So I don't know. That's just my take. And I've worked minimum wage, like when I was younger. So like I understand. It just seems like these policies do not work. Like leftist policies do not work.
I mean,
do you know? Oh, sorry, Hels.
All good. What I'm saying is, yeah. In California, because I don't live in California. I don't know what the issue is. California has always had those type of unaffordable problems, right? But like when it's mostly due to things like I said, like demand. Yeah, I mean, and the way that it's implemented. Because sure, if you implement like a drug program where you just give them the substitute, but you don't give them therapy, you don't give them like any type of support afterwards, then the issue is gonna get worse. You see what I'm saying? But if there are things that, if there's a robust system there, then the problem wouldn't be as much, would it? Like I understand, like when you live in California, because I think California has that problem where they implement one part of a whole ecosystem and don't do anything else, and therefore you see the problems. But that's not really what the left calls for. We would call for a whole new ecosystem to solve these issues, not just implement this and everything's gonna be fine. Just throw your hands up. You see what I mean?
But your ecosystem that you're trying to implement is all contingent on the state. It's all state solutions, which I'm arguing makes the problem worse. Whereas the Republicans are saying, hey, there's too much state involved. If we reduce the amount of the state, it might actually get a little cheaper. And what it shows is, if you look at Texas and Florida, they're beating out, and even Tennessee and other Republican areas, and Ohio, whatever, they're beating out the left equivalents, like the parallels on the left. But so it's like, we know that these policies are better. We have clear evidence. I got you.
What I'm saying is, like when it comes to places like Florida and Texas, right? Texas depends a lot on things like oil. Florida depends a lot of things on tourism. But once you take away tourism from Florida, it's gonna go to shit, like automatically. You see what I'm saying? But like that's never gonna happen because Florida's beautiful, so that's not gonna happen. But
that's like saying if you took away tech from California, then it would go to shit. That's not a real argument, because we're talking about the like, yes, the economies each look different and they specialize in different things. Like Texas specializes in energy, Florida specializes in tourism, California, New York in finance, California in tech and entertainment. But that doesn't change the effect of the policies. We're just talking about the policies. Like, yes, the economies are different. But you know what I'm saying? That's kind of like a separate topic.
I got you, Rob. What I'm saying is that, again, the way that California puts in these policies is that they don't filter out the entire ecosystem. They just implement one part, give them the substitute for the drug, and that's it. They don't give them any support or anything else. If they got all of that, you'll see the policy work a lot better, because there are places where they've done that and it did work better, like over in Portugal. You see what I'm saying? So, but California didn't follow that. That's what I mean. We just can't say that when you half-ass a policy, therefore the policy doesn't work. Of course it didn't work. You half-assed it.
Also,
Rob,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I think there's two things to point out when it comes to the whole argument about, like, it's more expensive to live in these blue states and stuff. Well, blue states on average are net earners. They contribute the most to GDP. So, like, this come with costs. You have higher GDP, you have all better infrastructure, more stuff you spend on or whatever, and they have more diverse economies. So what happens is that just raises the standard of living. So that's going to raise the prices for things. So that's part two, really. Part one is the wages nowhere really in this country are really accurate or accurately reflect, like, they're not fair wages per se. We still are underpaid even in our richest states. But it's kind of crazy to say, like, these are failed policies on the left, because California, I think that's now, it used to be fifth, but now if it were alone, it would be the third largest economy or fourth largest economy in the world if it were its own country. New York, are you kidding me? So like there's not even just like there's so they have them beat, and then red states are net borrowers. They end up having to take in more money from the federal government, while blue states raise more money, and then they tend out to like basically what do you call it, bail out the red states essentially, because they raise the revenue that the government uses to bail them out. So if they had more diverse economies and they had more stuff going on in red states, their standard of living would be higher too. And then we would just need fairer wages, and that would kind of address the problem. But it's not really a flex to say, oh, I'm a tax haven state. Like, you know, that's not really a flex. That's why red states are tend to be cheaper. So
I would dispute a lot of what you're saying. I think that, well, first of all, them being a net contributor versus net taker, a lot of people forget that a lot of the red states it's a lot of land, it's a lot of farmland. So a lot of the money is going to farmers. A lot of there's also a lot of military bases in these red states. So it's not that the red state is a taker. For example, New Mexico, right, has like Native American reservations, military land, federal land. Alaska and Montana also have a ton of land and native populations and military. So what you're doing is you're taking a total amount, you're aggregating the red states as like a net taker, but you're not actually distinguishing, well, what is that money being spent on? In the red states, it's actually being spent on things that are pretty important. It doesn't mean that they're a net taker. In the blue states, it's being spent on things like healthcare for illegal immigrants, trams to nowhere. Like it's not being used effectively, right? Like the dollars are not being spent effectively. And it's also like, you have to remember there's a ton of, just because it's a predominantly blue state now doesn't mean it always was. California was blood red up until Reagan gave that mass amnesty. When Silicon Valley was created, it was a red state. It was always a red state. It voted red every election. And ironically, Texas and Florida were blue states at that time. So to say that, oh, it's a blue state, they have these great economies, it's like, well, Schwarzenegger had a great economy too. He was a Republican. Like it's a little bit disingenuous to just look at the last like 10 years and be like, oh, it's a blue state. Republican governor wins this year. Does it make it now suddenly a red state? Like obviously not. I mean, a lot of these states are pretty purple to begin with. So I just don't like the red versus blue. Like it's one thing to talk about the policies. Like I'm saying, these are the policies being pushed regardless of whether it's red or blue. You're just trying to essentially make it like a black and white issue.
no, I didn't really make it black and white. And there's two parts where you kind of missed my point. The first part is it's not about them aggregately being net borrowers. That's true. But if you just look at each state, red state, on average, they tend to be net borrowers. So they tend to not raise enough revenue to pay off their debts because of their economy. That's just like, you say you can disagree with that, but that's a fact. Like it's a fact that fact. Wait, hold on. All I'm making is an economic fact. They tend to borrow more than they raise in revenue. So like, are you like disputing that? Because I have the stats.
No, I'm giving you the reasoning for it. It's because red states have more land, they have more native populations, they have more military, they have more old people. Like for Medicaid, for example, and SNAP, they have a lot. People retire in red states. They usually don't live, like they tend to not live in cities as much. That's more for younger people that are like entrepreneurs, like looking for jobs, whatever. So you're attributing it as if red states are leeches when you're ignoring as to the factors why they take more money.
I didn't really make them out to be leeches. I'm just pointing out it's a really flawed and pretty indefensible argument to say that the leftist policies, and I call them blue or red states because these are states largely run by what? Democrats or Republicans in their legislature. So that's what I'm meaning when I say red or blue states. Not even the mix of people, like when you call it purple. Like there's most of these states is predominantly either Democrat or Republican in the legislature. And then I just don't really know what you mean by failed policies. If they're failed policies, why do they have the highest life expectancies? New York, California, Massachusetts.
I'll explain
Wait, they have the highest life expectancies. They have the best education. They raise the most GDP. And then they tend to contribute most to social safety nets. So they do more to contribute to people who need help and a leg up, while still outdoing the red states who claim that the leftists just like to put the government into debt. I'm not really necessarily calling them leeches. And then you do have a point when you say that a lot of them are rural, the red states, and there's a lot of land and stuff like that. But that is a fact. But
So
it's
when I
it's
say
really dishonest to just say that like, oh well, it's cheaper here because it's just so much better and it's because of failed policies. No, it's because of a cheaper standard of living. That's really what it boils down to. But I'm done.
But my point is, when I say failed policies, I'm saying because California accounts for about a third of the U.S. homeless population. It has the highest poverty rate, the highest unemployment rate. The schools are not doing well. They spend the most money per pupil, and they still can't keep up. They're like literally losing to Mississippi, who spends like less than half of what California does per pupil in education.
They still have
outcomes.
more patents per capita. They still have the better education. Like California still has the best infrastructure.
I'm sorry.
Infrastructure is amazing.
I'm sorry, y'all. Can I make a quick correction? Because something sounded wrong. The highest poverty is Louisiana, Mississippi, and New Mexico.
You have to look at SPM. Those are what you're looking at is the official poverty rate, which doesn't account for cost of living. That's why it looks so high in those states. When you look at the SPM, Louisiana is tied with California at 23.2%. California is leading the nation. California has a higher standard deviation. Like
SPM, California, Louisiana, Florida.
The poverty measure that's used by like politicians, by everyone, the standard poverty measure is called the SPM, the supplemental poverty measure. When you look at that,
I got you.
Louisiana and California are tied.
Yeah, Louisiana, California, and Florida.
Well, if you're counting it to cost of living, it seems arguable that if there's going to be larger gaps for between the cost of living and that the wages, right, or whatever, then if the gap is larger, then it seems like there's going to be more poverty in the states. And then that's just simply reflected in the statistics. So it seems like whenever you take in cost of living, it kind of seems to level it out. But like really, it just kind of blurs the outliers or like the extreme ends.
No, but my point is, if these progressive policies worked, New York and California and Chicago and these areas would be model, like exemplar, places of progressive ideology. They're not. It's gotten worse over time.
Well, I'm not saying they're perfect, but they're the better than
it's not about perfect.
States relative. Like I'm not saying California is a model. Like arguably the Nordic countries are our model for like an economy like that has infrastructure for the workers and cares about workers' rights and all that stuff.
Well, one thing I wanted to add is that the issue in California, why there's so much poverty and why the cost of living is so high, is because of a shortage of housing. And the shortage of housing happened because of decades of underbuilding. And the decades of underbuilding are primarily ran by NIMBYism, which is racism. Yeah, I mean, California is one of the most racist states in the country. So it's not just because the progressive policies failed them. It's because they underbuilt.
Yeah, so
what makes you say that?
I would like to add that Democrats do not actually perform leftist policies. They perform in this middle ground space that is Republican light. So when we say that there's Democrats with leftist ideologies or leftist policies, I think that needs a critique itself, because many Democrats do not perform leftist policies in the United States.
They do, though.
It's leftist for America, though. Like if you're just going to talk about the political ideological scale, yes, our leftists tend to be more moderate and are kind of close to conservatives in other countries, but they're still leftists as far as America's concerned.
All right, so Jorge, we went through rent control, right? Rent control is one of the things that it works in the short term, but long term it causes issues. Like we already get that part. There has to be different ways on how to do rent control.
I was gonna
there's always going to be regulation around that. But what I'm saying is that
I just wanted to respond to CAD because he's saying that they don't engage in leftist policies where like they've had rent controls in all of these areas for decades. They've had minimum wage laws. They've had what else? High taxation and high corporate taxes and high income taxes. These are all left and high social safety nets. These are all leftist programs and policies. So like to say that they're not leftist, it's kind of like, okay, well, then what is leftist? What are you missing?
Jorge, the Democrats are left of the Republicans, but they're not really left.
Yeah. So what leftist policy is missing is what I'm trying to understand.
Guaranteed housing, single payer health care,
They have guaranteed housing. They have a subsidy. They have a single. It's not single payer, but they have a state health care.
What is guaranteed housing? Who has guaranteed housing?
California has thousands of empty beds for either homeless people or for people that are struggling with drugs. Like there's
That's not guaranteed housing.
They have what's it called? Public housing programs. There's tons of them.
Everywhere has public housing
housing
programs. Public housing is not
program is
guaranteed
not-
housing.
Guaranteed housing.
Okay, what is the difference? And maybe I just don't know what guaranteed housing
Well,
is.
public
What's the
housing
difference?
is a facility that accommodates people, and then they run on limitations, and then they're very open. Like they tend to be, right. And a guaranteed housing would be probably more private, and it's not a building that you just fill up to the max capacity. So like you have a guaranteed set of housing, whether it's going to be like an apartment or it's usually like apartments, right?
But it's state funded, right?
Posts. I don't know a whole lot about them. I know like the basic.
Yeah, they have this is called CalWorks in California. It's a huge housing. They have housing assistance, housing support. They have a home key program. They have another program called No Place Like Home. Like these are all leftist. Is it mean? It's active. Like it's currently. This is a. What do you mean means tested? This
in
is
order
like,
for you to apply to any of this stuff. What do you what do you need to do?
Let's see. I'm pretty sure you just have to prove that you're either homeless or at risk. It's a very like the barrier to entry is like super low in California.
And what is it called?
There's one called CalWorks Housing Support Program. There's one called No Place Like Home. There's one called Home Key. There's or Project Room Key. I think it's like either or.
Yet people still lack housing.
Yeah,
I know. It's almost like it's not a housing issue.
It is a housing issue. Because again,
I disagree. I think it's a mental illness. It's a mental illness issue.
Jorge. How can it not be a housing issue if California doesn't have a lot of homes?
Well, it depends where you're talking about in California. Like it depends what part of California.
I'm talking about the entire country, the entire state. The entire state has a lack of homes. That's one of the main reasons why it's so expensive over there.
Right. Like who cares about one discrete area?
It doesn't have a lack of public housing is what I'm saying. There's a lot of options for homeless people and people that are struggling. Like though that's not a shortage. The shortage is a shortage of like actual homes that people are buying that are not guaranteed by the state.
So it doesn't lack public housing?
I as far as I can tell, no. Like there's tons of public initiatives.
So you're saying all over California there's housing projects just sitting empty and no one's living in them?
I'm not saying all over California, but there's definitely parts of it that there's a ton of abandoned buildings. You should. I mean,
abandoned buildings are not housing projects, bro.
They could be turned into housings.
It's not the same thing, though.
That's not the same thing. That's what I'm talking about. They're not the same thing. What I'm saying is that when it comes to CalWorks, right? Yeah, it helps people find housing, but it helps them find affordable housing. But if they can't find it, what do you think happens?
Sure. I mean, I'm just saying that there's tons of subsidized or either fully subsidized or heavily there's tons of housing programs here, which are very leftist policies. Like we're in no shortage of that.
So,
and if they can't find a housing, what happens? That's what I mean. The issue is lack of housing. That's what's going on. Lack of housing.
I agree with you, by the way. I think we should have more supply. Like I don't disagree with that, but I think you're putting too much weight on that, and you're not willing to see the actual program for what it is. It's like these programs are not really that great.
But the program is supposed to be helping people get housing if they're homeless.
Exactly. The keyword's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. It doesn't.
The reason why it doesn't is because of why.
Because the problem is not just a lack of housing. We have a mental illness problem. We have a drug problem.
Economists say otherwise.
So if we have a mental illness problem and we have a drug problem, that means that we should probably open up the federal mental health institutions that Reagan closed down, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I that's actually one of my biggest complaints of Reagan. Yeah, I don't think those should have been closed. I agree. I think most Republicans agree with that.
No, they don't. If they don't, bro. They don't. They really don't.
Chad and Steve, last night's debate, they were the only two on the stage. All Democrats said no. They would not enforce Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco are the leading Republican nominees for the governor. And then Katie Porter, Xavier, all the other people.
So Jorge, I got you.
All the Democrats
give me 1 second, Give me 1 second. Jorge, I agree with you that there are Republicans who would agree with opening up those federal hospitals again, right? Yeah, sure. There are hold on. There are Republicans who agree with you. There are Republicans who agree with me. What I'm saying is, for the most part, they don't. If you ever come to the stage, you would see that they don't agree with that. They don't even agree with giving kids free lunches. Look at Charlie Kirk. He didn't even agree with that.
Well,
A lot of Republicans are assholes, bro. That's what I'm saying.
That's not an asshole thing.
It is. It is. How you not gonna feed kid where they're supposed to be? That's an asshole.
It's not an asshole thing to let children starve. That's not an asshole thing.
No, you can't, bro. Not when it comes to public school. When it comes to public school, the federal government is the only one who can afford to feed all the children there. That's it.
So
that's not. Huh?
Wait, so state governments can't do it?
State governments can't do it? No, they're gonna need.
You're saying the federal government's the only one that.
Yeah, the federal's gonna need the one who's going. I mean, the state governments are the ones who control this the most in the first place. So what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that the state can't do it. What I'm saying is that there are people who believe that we should not give free school lunches, and the state is the one
because it's bad, because they're bad.
But I do want to point this out. Notice how a lot of Republicans go against the concept of America first. In that whole situation, because how are you gonna claim to be America first and but don't want to use federal tax dollars to pay for children to literally eat, but then complain about illegal immigration and them taking up resources?
I mean, it's because they're savage capitalists. They don't care about the morality of the situation. They only care about the profit and how to manage the profits of the situation. And on the topic of rent does not match the cost of living, and minimum wage does not match the cost of living in a lot of places. So, and on the topic of places that let people have housing, like Section 8 and such like that, those things get filled up very, very fast, and those waiting lists are very, very huge, further implying that we do have a homeless crisis problem, and being poor does not necessarily equate to a mental illness. That's another thing that Republicans like to throw this around, that somehow not being so capitalistically inclined and fit is considered a mental illness. No, it's only a mental illness because the wealth gap is very huge and very disproportionate, and wealth inequality exists.
I think you're misconstruing some of the conservative points, but sure.
The first
I'm not,
thing
bro.
is
Like, because here's what I say. Yeah, I got you. But here's the thing, Jorge. Yeah, the state should be feeding kids who are in public school, and I have no idea why conservatives are against this. It sounds insane to me. Why would you not feed children? The quality. We can discuss. Hold on. We can discuss the quality of the food. That's fine, right? I don't have an issue with discussing the quality, but saying that they should not have food is crazy.
That's not the argument.
They're literally arguing they shouldn't have food. Charlie Kirk literally said that they should not have free lunch.
Because
he literally said that. No. He didn't. He said that we should not have free lunch at all. The parents should feed them.
He says that it's overreach from the government program.
Which is stupid.
That's it's a justification. No, it isn't.
Ain't no justification, bro. No. Ain't no justification.
Overreach to feed
children are forced to be in school. We require them to be in school. It's a law, and we're not going to feed them. That's crazy.
We can feed them. It's just that he disagrees on the mechanism on which you feed them. He doesn't believe that the government does a good job at feeding them.
Who's going to do it then?
How we used to do it. Communities, churches, families,
Did
whatever.
People go hungry?
The most powerful country in the world.
Hold on, Jorge. Did people go hungry?
Where? When?
When we did the way you're talking about. Did people go hungry? The kids go hungry?
No.
Yes, they did.
No.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't. Where did they go hungry?
In California. Have you ever heard the Black Panthers? Why do you think they did the free lunch program, the free lunch and free breakfast program? Why do you think they did that for?
Because they believe in heavy government intervention.
No.
Hold on,
everybody pause. Jorge, listen. The reason why the Black Panthers, matter of fact, this is crazy, because you just said before the government, the community fed them. The Black Panthers were the community, my guy. So what are you saying?
I mean, yes.
And the second thing, hold on. And the second thing, hold on. And the second thing is the reason why they did that is because those kids had nothing to eat. Kids went hungry.
You're kind of
hold on. Wait.
Right?
People went hungry. When you're talking about what you're talking about, right? When the community just fed them, folks went hungry, bro. The Black Panthers weren't everywhere.
You just contradicted it. You
hold
just
on.
said that the community
You
fed them.
understand that the Black Panthers weren't everywhere, right?
Yes, there might be a different community in a different. I understand
in a different community, in a different area,
yes,
where the Black Panthers weren't there, and there was nobody to feed them. What happened to the kids?
That's what I'm asking you. Where did that happen?
It happened in California before the Panthers.
California and specifically America has had food abundance for a long time, for hundreds of years
and
now.
we still have people who starve. That's what I'm saying.
We have nutritionally starving kids because the government programs are so bad.
It's not about the government program. They just don't got no food, bro. You ever heard of food deserts?
Food deserts refers to nutrition, like there's no nutrition.
No, I'm saying that there's no food there. There's no supermarket. There's nothing there.
So they're just starving to death in America.
They're not just starving to death. I'm saying that number
food
one,
quality is low.
The food quality is low, and number two,
point.
okay. So the food quality is low, but that's not because of government. Actually, it kind of is because of government.
No incentive to give you high.
It actually is because of government. It's because of redlining. That's what it's for. It's because of redlining.
Dude, you see the contract. You see how much you're kind of turning into a pretzel here.
No. Listen to
Is it because of government or not?
Yeah, it's because of redlining. I agree. It was because of redlining, right?
Okay, which is government.
Which is government.
Sure.
It was because of redlining.
So we're saying, hey,
so
don't use a government mechanism. Let's use another better mechanism that actually gives food to people at a cheaper cost and better quality. That's Charlie's argument. He doesn't want children to starve, obviously. That's not his argument, bro. Like, at least try to steel man his argument.
All right. No, I understand that he doesn't want children to starve, or he didn't want children to starve. I get that, right? What I'm saying is that the mechanism that he's employing right now, that wouldn't work.
Why not? It has worked in the past. It was the same thing with healthcare.
What happened to the children who didn't have a community that could feed them? What happened to them?
I think they're imaginary.
They're not imaginary.
There were plenty of communities that would feed them. Even to this day, by the way, when I lived in Venice, there was food. Hold on. So let me. Like, there's always been communities.
Food banks exist. I'm not saying that food banks don't exist. What I'm saying is
that's not government.
I get that's not government. What I'm saying is that even in food banks, they're not enough to feed everybody in their community. They're not enough. So what happens?
But here's why they're not enough, actually, because this is very. I used to work for a large supermarket chain in Florida, actually. You know, Publix. Here's why they're not enough. It's because the government goes in and it makes it illegal for them to actually give out food because they get sued. When we would give out food from Publix, like, we would have tons of leftovers. What would happen is, like, people would bring the food back and sue us, and there was no government protection against that. So you know what they ended up doing? We ended up giving the food to just farmers so that they could feed, like, horses, like carrots and shit like that. Because when you gave it to people, unfortunately, people take advantage of the situation, and it makes it very hard to actually help anybody. So this is the problem with government, is that there's no actual accountability. There's no check. Let me understand this. When Publix had an overabundance of food, they would give it out to people, and people would bring it back and sue Publix. I worked in Publix. I worked in the Davie one when I was younger, and I saw this constantly. I was like, this is when I worked my minimum wage job. I was a bag boy. People would take the food, wait till it expires, and then come back and complain and sue us. That happened constantly, to the point where we stopped being able, because
So what was the protection?
We couldn't get the government. There was no protection, so
there should be a regulation on that, shouldn't there?
The protection would be against the people that are suing. They would be in favor of
there should be a regulation.
I agree. Sure.
Cool.
Sure, I agree.
So cool. So there are regulations that actually do work. A regulation on that would have stopped that, wouldn't it?
I guess, but it was so political that it was never passed. I don't know
I get it. It never went up to the government. I get that part, right? But what I'm saying is that there are some systems that just wouldn't work just by the community doing it. The food banks are not enough, bro. They're just not.
I know, but I'm saying that a lot of the reasons why they're not enough is because people unfortunately take advantage and try to essentially. It is actually very hard to help people. Like, unfortunately, it is.
I disagree with the notion that the reason food banks aren't enough is because greedy motherfuckers were suing Publix. That's not the reason, bro.
It's not the only reason. It's just that it turns into a whole liability. The same thing happened with the Whole Foods here in Venice. Like they had all these food programs here. When I lived in Venice, and like what ended up happening was they had to wait. They essentially had to go through like some third party workaround, because if it went directly from Whole Foods, it all became a liability concern. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right. I get the liability concerns, and it has to be the logistics that worked out there, right? But that would just mean that that there should be regulation on that. That's all that would mean. But all I'm saying is that when it comes to this issue of feeding children in school, the food banks and the community a lot of times is not enough. The logistics just aren't there. I mean, the only people who have the logistical capability to do that is the state government.
I disagree. I think local communities are unfortunately sidelined by the state government too often, where it's like they are literally competing with the state government.
I'm telling you this right now.
Contracts.
If you don't have lunches in school, the poorest areas in this country will have starving children tomorrow. I'm telling you that right now. They do not have the infrastructure for it. They just don't.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying like overnight. Like obviously there would be like a transition phase or something, but I just don't think that the government feeds you well. I don't think that the government feeds children well.
It's not about the government feeding children. There needs to be better nutrition in these schools. Everybody agrees with that, right? If it was up to me, every school would have Haitian food. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just my favorite food. Like that, if it were up to me,
sure.
Right? So, but like it's not really about the government feeding you well. It's about the infrastructure and the logistics to actually do stuff like this. The locals just don't have it.
I would argue that the government will never have it, because
but they
have
do
no
because they're
feed you good shit
every single day.
I went to public school, by the way.
I did too, but every single day we're eating public. The kids are eating lunch in school, right? There's not, unless the principal doesn't fill out the food order.
Oftentimes they don't, because the food is so bad. To be honest,
right? We could change the standards of the food. I don't disagree with changing the standards.
No, we
of the
couldn't.
Food.
The cost would not align with the cost of the food in school lunches. Far exceeds any other private or charity or community effort. That's my point, is that the government is the worst at distributing this food, because they just don't have the means to. They don't have the
What do you mean they don't have the means to? They have billions of dollars.
It's not a money issue, it's an incentive issue. They have no incentive to actually feed your kid a good meal.
Why would they not have the incentive? Is this is their citizens?
Because there's no feedback mechanism in the public sector. This is like the conservative problem with the public sector in general.
The feedback sector is voting, bro.
No. Yeah, it's voting, but what do you vote for? Like, it doesn't matter if a Republican's in office, the school food is still as bad as a Democrat. The problem is with the incentive structure of the public sector. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. It's not that people have good or bad intentions. I'm sure there's tons of really well-intentioned people in the public sector. Unfortunately, the food still sucks. Like, that's just the reality.
Right.
So what Charlie,
I got you. There has to be a way to have the food be better. I get it. I mean, I grew up in Miami, so the food wasn't that bad. But like, yeah, but the charities do not have the infrastructure or do have the capability to cover all of this. They just don't.
Even parents, bro. Like, this is the thing, is that when there's a gap, you don't need to try and fill every gap with the government. If there's a gap in food in a local community or whatever, parents will literally get together and figure it out. Like, that's the power of a community. But if the government is doing that for them, the parents will never do it. This is the problem.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why in other countries they don't have this problem? What's wrong with America?
Because the other countries that usually people compare it to are more similar to a local community. You realize that like in the Nordic countries have less of a population size than LA County.
So what?
Like, LA County is 12 million. You know, Sweden's like 7 million.
So what?
The populations are much smaller and it's much more localized.
But so what?
So that removes these like layers of abstraction of the federal government just giving billions of dollars to Pepsi. You know,
let me get this right.
Sure.
There's a lot of people, therefore food has to suck. That sounds stupid.
It's a matter of scale. The government in America, the 350 million people, is it's a lot more different than a government in like one of these smaller countries.
We get that the scale is different, right? We get that the scale is different, but the issue is still, why do they have better food than us? The scale is different. We get it. But having less people doesn't mean that the food has to be bad. The gap is still there. What's going on?
It does. It's not that it's not about the food being bad or good. It's that the programs are more effective at the smaller you get, the more local you get in government, the more effective government is. When you get to the federal government, it's just there's too many layers of abstraction at that point, and it's a very It means that it has to go through the state level, it has to go through the federal level, it has to go through the municipality and the school districts.
Oh, it has to keep going up and up and up and up and up. I get it. I get that part. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. In these other countries, that doesn't exist. It's just a municipality taking care of the food for the district. Like that's it. It's a local. It's a local. It's actually exactly what I'm arguing for. It's like let's do it locally, bro. So I'm down to do it.
So wait, how do you explain countries that have comparable populations and they still have good food?
Like where?
Japan.
I mean, Japan is a very interesting example because their culture around food, like it's similar to France, where they literally have kids taking food classes from a young age. They have a very and I'm not saying that this is like a huge thing, but like I do think it makes it easier when you have like a very like homogeneous culture to make some of these things happen.
I disagree. I don't think having a homogeneous culture has anything to do with anything.
But they're very Japan is very like conservative, hierarchical, homogeneous. Like they're very different than us.
They're very different. We're very individualistic and they're very homogeneous. But what I'm saying, they're very like collective. They're very collective and we're very individual. Yeah, they're more of a collective culture. They have formalized face culture over there. I get that part, right? But what I'm saying is that how are their government ever to figure out to give their kids nutritious, delicious food, and we cannot?
I think it's a culture thing, to be honest. Like I do think that the culture in Japan is just very unique. Like it's not something that I don't even think we should try and replicate it because I'm
not saying we should try to replicate it. I'm saying is that if we all care about this, right? We want to get them nutritious food and food that is good and delicious. What is stopping us? Because what's stopping us, what I see from what's stopping us is just we're just yelling at each other instead of telling our government to do it. Yeah, I mean, we're just saying that, hey, it should be local or hey, it should be federal. The infrastructure on the local level just isn't there right now. So let's go ahead and make sure that our government can do it.
Crowds them out.
The federal, it's not because of the federal government. The school system is ran mostly by the state.
Mostly by unions, to be honest. But yeah.
No, mostly by the state. The teachers are have a union, but most of the funding doesn't even go to teachers. It goes to the administration, and they don't have a union.
I agree with you. It's a government issue. Dude, we're completely aligned on this one. I have no faith that the government will ever deliver good food or good outcomes. I'm sorry.
But the school administration is not the government. The government is the state. The
funding is.
But the funding is not coming from the administration. That's what I'm saying. Like what I'm saying is that the state and the local level gives the funding to the administration of the schools.
I know in public schools, yeah. But this is where I would bring in like charter schools or privately funded schools. They generally have way better food.
But private schools won't work in America, bro. Half the country will be illiterate if that happens.
We have tons of private schools. We have tons of charter schools.
We have lots of yes, I know, but the majority of schools in America cannot be private. That's not going to work.
I'm not arguing that they should all be private, but like I'm just saying that like, you know, when you look at what schools are having good outcomes for food, it tends to be a lot of like the private or charter schools. Or
yes, because those people who go there are rich, at least private schools.
Even when you introduce something as basic as school choice, you see the quality of a lot of like not just food but education go up. Like
not necessarily, because like a lot of those people who get those vouchers, they just take them to private schools, and the kids who can't go there are asked out.
I guess it depends on which case you're
because private schools can deny anybody. They don't have to take anyone. They can deny everybody, even if you have a voucher. True. So if you have a voucher and you can't go to the private school, those kids are going to be asked out.
Yeah, I'm not arguing to abolish public school. I think we should have public school, of course. I'm just saying that if you want good outcomes, it's like you have to actually study, well, what creates good outcomes for kids?
Funding. funding and
not
changing.
necessarily.
Not the only thing. I won't say the funding isn't the only thing, but yeah, if you have funding, if you have more better experienced teachers, if you reform the school system outside of the the industrialized era that we've had for schools, if you change all of that, you can you definitely see better outcomes, because other countries, like especially in the Nordic countries, they all have public school. But how do they pay their teachers? What is the mechanism of their education? What do they do over there? And you see they do it way different than us.
Yes, but the left is quick to say funding. But like, if to be honest, and I've actually studied this quite a bit. When you look at Baltimore City schools or Detroit or Newark, they have the highest
spending
cost
per capita
per pupil in the nation.
In the nation, I get that.
Higher than any Nordic country.
And it's still bad. And it's still bad.
Some of the worst outcomes
of education. Because funding is not the only issue. It's also other structural issues.
I would say funding is not an issue at all. We are overfunded, and as we've increased in funding, we've actually gotten worse since the Department of Education has existed.
But the Department of Education doesn't run anything, bro. The states run it.
I'm not saying I understand, but I'm just saying it's not a funding. My point is just that it's not a funding issue.
I would say it's not only a funding issue. There's structural issues as well.
Yes, I would say that it's not a funding issue at all. Like, it's a 0%. Like, we have more than enough money in schools. It's just wasted and spent on bullshit.
Yeah,
because the government sucks.
I got you. There are structural problems, right? But the reason those structural problems that exist within the education system that we're talking about, we just can't say it's the government.
I would argue that a lot of it is the government. Even when you look at New York, I don't know if you know the story.
Which government?
Well, like a state government, the federal government, whatever. In this case, I would say the state government. But
okay, so a lot of these states' government are red. They're Republican. So
yeah, I whether red or blue, I don't think there's certain things that, in my opinion, as a conservative, I don't believe that the government should have their hands on at all. And healthcare, education maybe a little bit, but like, honestly, I think we
should have single payer, definitely.
No, yeah, we would disagree completely. It's just like there's just no. The government sucks at doing this shit.
Why don't they suck in other countries?
Again, it's a scaling issue. It's an innovation issue. It's other countries don't.
China
don't
has
lead
a
the world in
billion people,
pharmaceuticals.
and China has 1 billion people, and they still have universal health care.
Yes, they don't have all this democratic healthcare systems where you have all these interested groups and lobbies competing for money and
exactly.
And
so we should get rid of the lobbies. I agree. Let's get rid of the lobbies.
That only really happens in an authoritarian country like China. China gets some pretty.
So what's happening in Japan or France?
What has happened in Japan or France?
Everything that you're talking about, these competing lobbying interesting groups, it doesn't happen in Japan or France. Like, since they have single payer, the incentive to do all that is gone.
Does Japan even have single payer?
Japan has single payer. France has single payer.
But by the way, France has major economic issues with their.
Oh yeah, they definitely do. Yeah, their pension issues.
I wouldn't use France as like something we want to emulate. But does Japan have?
Japan has single payer. Singapore has single payer.
No, it's not technically. It says it's not single payer. It has universal healthcare, I guess.
That's single payer.
Yeah, again, look, we can compare to Japan, but we're just not Japan. Like I like that country is very, very.
I understand. I got you. I understand that we're just not Japan. What I'm saying is that there are countries that do have diversity, such as Germany, such as France, that still have a universal system. Yeah, France has a lot of issues. Germany, I'm not sure what the issues are over there. I think the issues are more the tensions over immigration, like we have over here. But like they still have these systems and they work out. I'm always wondering, what are they doing that we're not? I understand that there's a lot less of them, right? But they still have the diversity that we have. I think Germany is like, what, 80 million people? They're not 300 million for sure. Yeah, they have 300 million for sure, but they still have diversity.
I'm not totally, it's not that I'm totally against it. It's just I think that people often don't account for the trade-offs that would happen. Like, there's a reason why the US leads in pharmaceuticals and healthcare innovation and equipment and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you take out the capital incentive in our healthcare system, which honestly, it's already all but gone. Like, the government is so deep in our healthcare system already. you wouldn't. I don't think most people would actually accept the losses in innovation and outcomes.
Why would we
like,
lose
as it relates to
innovation?
the rest of the world?
That's the thing. I don't understand why we will lose innovation. The reason why the person
Because there's no
invented,
capital incentive.
but there was no capital incentive for the smallpox or polio vaccine. We still made it.
There was a capital incentive.
No, there wasn't. We were just
Smallpox?
trying to save people. That was the incentive. There was no capital incentive in the smallpox vaccine. He gave it for free.
The smallpox one, I think you're right. That was like in the early 1900s, or when was that?
Like in the 1950s, he gave it out away for free. I'm not understanding why like money has to be the driver. How come we just can't want to save people's lives? I think this is the issue here. Like,
Because while that sounds noble, it's just not what we see that actually works. Like, why don't they?
So why did we get the smallpox and polio vaccine if it didn't work?
I mean, people. It's not to say that people never do things out of like. There's a lot of people that are motivated to try and save humanity. Yeah, but I'm just saying that if you remove the capital incentive, you will slow down innovation. Like, I'm not saying it won't exist, but you will slow it down.
But we didn't have, for example, I know this is not the best example, but the USSR didn't have capital incentive. They still beat us to space. We beat them to the moon, but they beat us to space, and they still had innovation throughout the USSR history. You know what I'm saying? It was something with the internet.
I would dispute that heavily. I don't think they had much innovation. When it comes to space, it's like the only thing. But they struggled for a long time. They had massive famines. They
did struggle.
Tens of millions of people.
They did struggle, but like Russian scientists were amongst like USSR scientists were amongst the best scientists in the world at that point.
Yeah, they were smart. They were smart for sure.
And they didn't have any capital incentive.
But they came to the U.S. A lot of them came and worked in the U.S.
No, a lot of the Germans came to the U.S. A lot of Germans came to the U.S. because of
100%.
Because of white supremacy. So a lot of Germans came to the U.S. But a lot of USSRs, they stayed over in the USSR, mostly because of politics. But what I'm saying is that right now in our point in history, the money is what drives a lot of people, right? But is our entire healthcare field just built upon making the most amount of money? Because if that's the case,
no, I wish it was. It's the opposite. It's filled of lobbyists and interests and
so making a lot of money
and siphoning money. What's that?
So making a lot of money.
It's not. It's ran by the government. Like the government runs the insurance.
It's not,
that's
bro.
What Medicaid is. That's what Medicare is.
Right,
yeah.
but the majority of our country is private healthcare. It's not Medicare. What I'm saying is that
it's private in name, but in function, it's ran by the government. The government literally decides how much money you can make. It decides what you have to cover. It decides everything. There's a total. The marketplace is controlled by the government. It's only private.
Of course, those regulations exist because when they didn't, people died.
Who died?
When we had the entire thing of pre-existing conditions, people would sign up for people would put in claims for their cancer, and the insurance company wouldn't cover it because of a pre-existing condition. The person died. That happened all the time.
I mean, they would cover it for a different price. It's just you have to pay whatever the price is.
No, they wouldn't cover it at all. People died.
There's of course they would cover it. It's just at cost. If I drive a Ferrari, my car insurance is going to cost more than if I drive a Civic. Like, it's just what it costs.
Of course, of course, if your premium is going to be higher, that's fine. What I'm saying is that before
hold on, a drinker.
Hold on, Jorge.
Sorry.
Before the rules change, right? Before the American, before the ACA, before Obamacare, before those rules change, what insurance companies were doing is that if a person caught cancer, a lot of times they will completely drop the person or not cover their chemotherapy because they had a pre-existing condition. That's what they would do, like not cover them at all. That's what I'm saying. And those folks would die.
They would cover them at a cost. It's just obviously going to cost more.
No, I'm saying they would drop them from the entire plan. They wouldn't cover them at all. Not at all. That's what I'm saying.
You know what? I should look into this because I hear this a lot. So I'll look. I'll take
I grew up in the 90s. We've seen that a lot. One of my godmothers died of brain cancer because of that. They didn't cover it at all. They like completely dropped it. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I'll look into this. This is actually it's because what are you saying that
what I'm saying is that Obamacare changed that. What I'm saying is that the reason why the government was so involved in the market is because of stuff like that was happening. The entire point of the health insurance companies was to make a profit. If they can't make a profit off of you, they will find a way to deny you coverage. They won't cover you at all sometimes.
I understand that. Yes, they're
and that's what causes problems. That's what I mean.
At the end of the day, every insurance company is about managing risk, right? You're offsetting your risk to something else so that you can be covered, right, in case of emergency. Like that is the model of insurance. I understand that they have a profit incentive, of course. Every insurance always will have a profit incentive. That's the only purpose of insurance, right?
Right, but what I'm saying is
that it's not viable any other way.
I got you.
Yeah, and just real quick.
Got you. Go ahead, Cyber. Let me just add one thing. I get that's the motive, right? The profit incentive. What we're saying is that if we had universal health care, that profit incentive wouldn't exist. We all just get covered. There wouldn't be any incentive to deny you coverage because I'm not gonna make money. You see what I'm saying?
Like that's would be the same. The cost would be the same.
Not necessarily because the costs are lower everywhere. Go ahead, Cyber. Go ahead. I'll interrupt you. Go ahead, Cyber.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, so for example, there's a man named Albin Johnson. For those who are Star Wars fans, Albin Johnson is the founder of the 501st Legion. They're the biggest Star Wars charity cosplay group in the world. And he started it because his daughter, Katie, when she was 8 years old, got cancer. And their insurance company dropped them because it was considered, it was considered a genetic issue. The insurance company did not cover genetic issues, so they dropped her. And as he was trying to find other insurance companies that would cover her, the ones that would cover pre-existing conditions still would not cover cancer because it was considered a genetic issue, right? So they wouldn't cover it. So he ended up starting the 501st, and people would dress up initially as stormtroopers to collect donations. They never charged for their appearances, but they would collect donations to try to pay for her cancer treatments. And then she eventually passed away. But this is the world we live in, where before the Affordable Care Act, certain illnesses were deemed either genetic and you wouldn't be covered, or they were considered pre-existing and you wouldn't be covered. This, like, a quick Google search can just show this. That's all I want to do is come up and
no, I hear you. I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm not opposed to like a public option or something that would cover people that have, obviously this is like, we want to take care of our people. But I just think that like when you involve the government to an extent where they're literally controlling the private insurers and you have private insurers dropping out of the ACA market and stuff, the price ends up ballooning like disproportionately. And that's what I'm saying.
But all right, the reason why a lot of these premiums went up is because they happen in states that didn't expand their Medicare options. The states that did expand their Medicare options didn't see an increase.
What do you mean? From what I understand, there was an increase. Like it was an increase.
No, not
everywhere.
Not everywhere. It only happened in states that didn't expand Medicaid. The states that did expand Medicaid did not see an increase.
Medicaid.
Mm-hmm. Remember, there's rules around Medicaid and Medicare, right? So that what Obamacare did was like they wanted to put more things into Medicaid and Medicare, increase the age, cover more things, et cetera, et cetera. The states that did that and agreed, their premiums did not go up. The states that didn't agree with that, their premiums did go up.
When was it? What time frame was? Is there something I could look at to better understand what you're saying? Like what time frame is this?
This was like a few years after the ACA passed. Yeah. When you started seeing the effects of it, you will see that the states that expanded their Medicaid options didn't see an increase in premiums. I think it's because a lot of it was I think it's because the premiums. Yeah, oh yeah, that's why the ACA market, they accepted like the subsidies from the ACA, so the premiums didn't go up. I'm not explaining.
You're saying because it was subsidized. That makes sense.
Subsidized. Mm-hmm.
Yes, but that is. I mean, but this is the problem with these distortion effects. Yes, you can subsidize it, and it looks like it's cheaper, but it's underneath the hood. It's It's actually just more expensive. It's just being subsidized by the taxpayer.
So why not
You're
just go
paying
single
it.
payer?
Well, what do you mean? Because that doesn't change the cost.
Yeah, it does. It skips all that.
It doesn't change the underlying cost of treatment.
Yeah, it does. They just send a bill to the government. What's causing the underlying cost of treatment
Who pays
is
for the government, bro?
the underlying cost of treatment is being driven a lot of times by middlemen, by administrative costs.
Yeah, by PBMs, and I agree.
Exactly.
I
So
agree, but a lot
if we
of
had
that
single payer, we won't have that, would we? Cut the middleman.
I disagree that we would have necessarily less administrative costs.
No, we would.
Because
If it goes
when-
straight to the government, we have no problem. Because right now it's going to the administrative of the hospital, to the administrative of one company, to administrative of the insurance company, and then et cetera, et cetera. So if you just cut all that middleman, we're good, right?
That sounds plausible in theory, but when you look at Bernie's Medicare for All proposal, he literally says in his proposal that we would have to raise taxes 5-6%, and that doctors would have to get paid less. Like it's literally outlined in that. So to say that it would cost less than what we currently have, it's like I'm honestly like, I hear you. I wish it was true. I'm not convinced.
Let me ask you
I don't
a
know
question.
if you can show me something
If our taxes go up, but we have less homelessness and our education system gets better, and we all don't have to worry about messing with crazy insurance companies because we have universal health care, you don't think the trade-off is worth it?
If you can guarantee me without a shadow of a doubt, yes, but I'm skeptical because that was the promise they made in California, and homeless is up 40%. And we're paying record level amounts. Education is worse.
Yeah, I
they
get
made
it,
all these promises they've made.
But why is what is the reason why homelessness got worse? It's not because
now we have a homeless industrial complex. There's no check, there's no accountability on the dollars being spent.
But the reason why homelessness is so bad in California is, again, because of underbuilding. They never address that. If you don't address that, of course the promise is going to be broken because you never address the actual reason.
Dude, for the amount of money they've spent on homeless, they could have built an entire city and put thousands of people.
Yeah, they should have.
People could. Obviously, they should have. I would have actually supported that.
Yeah, they
could have
didn't.
literally built an entire city.
Agreed.
And all of those people could have lived at the taxpayer expense, and it would have been better than what we have now.
Agreed. So
instead, what we have now is a bunch of fraud, mismanagement,
of course,
waste.
Agreed. So we both agreed. But the thing is, that's what leftist policies push for, building these things.
But the outcomes, I understand that the intention, that's what leftist policies push for. I'm concerned about the outcomes. I've never seen an outcome like where this has been played out, and it's actually I got you.
You never seen the outcomes, because over in California they promised all this shit and they didn't actually come through on their promise, because they didn't actually address the underlying issue. What leftists would like to do is actually address the underlying issue, which Democrats don't do. They just put a Band-Aid on it. They have leftist language, but they just throw a Band-Aid on it. They don't actually address the underlying issue. That's what I'm saying.
But I don't think the leftists understand the underlying issue, because they're not willing to institutionalize people that are a threat to themselves and their neighbors.
The Democrats are not, but the
leftists are not willing to.
What do you mean the leftists are not? Because we're the ones who are pushing for to open back up the hospitals.
You're the first guy on the left that I've actually talked to, like, and you seem like a genuine guy. Like I'm like you actually seem like a level-headed guy. Like I'm surprised you consider yourself a leftist, because I've never heard a leftist actually say that. They're usually like very like, oh no, we like harm reduction and criminal justice reform and all these policies.
Yes,
bro,
criminal justice reform. We do need criminal justice reform. I agree with that.
No, but they mean it in the sense that like we should essentially let their sentiment is that the criminal is a product of his environment, therefore he cannot be held accountable.
No, that's
a lot of the leftist judges say that. We have multiple repeat offenders here in California on the street, and it's a lot of woke, like, well, not to use the word woke, but like very like lefty criminal justice individuals that have essentially.
I don't know who those people are, but what I'm saying is that when it comes to the left, when it comes to criminal justice reform, it's not that you're a product of your environment, you're free to go. It's that because you're a product of your environment, we need to change these environments and we need to rehabilitate you. So you're going to go into this care facility where you learn how to be a part of society, and then when you know we can be a part of society, then we can let you integrate back into society. That's what the left wants to do.
Would you force them into this care facility?
Like
against
for
their
who?
will, like they can, like let's say they're
Criminals, yeah,
mentally-
sure.
No, just drug addicts. Like drug addicts, they haven't necessarily like unalived anyone yet, but like they're clearly like a threat to them. Like in Florida, you have the Baker Act, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Like, would you support something like that?
I would support putting the Baker Act everywhere, especially if they're a threat to others. Yeah.
But do you think most leftists would agree with that?
I'm not sure.
Like truthfully,
I'm not sure.
That really only exists in like really red, not really red, but like in predominantly red areas, like where you can it's literally called a conservatorship or institutional. I can't speak, like,
being institutionalized.
That's it.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, right? I think the concern that the left has is what is considered mentally unhealthy or a danger to others. Because remember, there was a time where a wife yelling at her husband was considered mentally unhealthy, or a slave running away was considered mentally unhealthy. So that's where the concern comes in. No, for I'm dead ass. That's where the concern comes in.
I agree. I'm with you.
Yeah, how is that? How is it going to be like implemented? And a lot of times, like what we see from a lot of like conservatives, they're really fast and loose with it, right? So like now in Florida, it's gotten tighter because like you have to be an actual danger. You actually have to threaten someone in order for you to get thrown in. You know what I'm saying? So like it has tight regulation, but that's why I support it, because the regulation is tight. A lot of these places are fast and loose. You know what I'm saying? So that's the concern. If you're just gonna say, oh, they're a danger, throwing them in, what do you mean by they're a danger? You see what I'm saying?
No,
because
of course, there has to be like some sort of process or some sort of threshold of like, okay, it needs to be cross-examined and determined by a doctor or whatever.
Exactly. Because down here in Florida, DeSantis was trying to make you being trans enough for you to be Baker acted. So that was the concern. You see what I'm saying? So like that's the issue there. I think that's where most leftists would say, I'm not sure about doing that. But if it's tightly controlled, if it's like you actually make a threat, you have a knife in your house and you're going around your neighborhood naked, throwing it at people. Yeah.
Common occurrence here, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Then we're gonna be like, okay, let's call your social worker, try to calm you down so we can get you in. You know what I mean? So that's one of the Baker Acts that they want to do. Like, who's the social worker? Who's the person that can talk to him, calm him down or calm her down, and then we're gonna go ahead and get her into the hospital instead of saying a cop out to shoot them. You see what I mean? I think that works out better.
I gotta say, maybe the Overton window in Florida is just so different that maybe you consider yourself a leftist because you live in Florida. But the leftists that I see here in California, none of them would say what you're saying. Like they would all be like, that guy's a Republican. Like when it comes to the mental illness treatment and like the current runner, the people running for mayor, Karen Bass and Nithya, they both openly said, they literally said, they had a debate last night where they got asked a similar question, and they said absolutely not. Like would you institutionalize people that are a threat to themselves and blah blah blah? No, or it depends, or blah blah blah. And it's more of the same. Like,
no, I agree.
I don't know,
it does depend. If they're having a mental breakdown, yeah, sure. Because there are people who do have manic episodes and mental breakdowns. I don't think you should just institutionalize them. So yeah, if it's a vague question like that, I probably would answer the same way. I'd be like, yeah, it's gonna depend. I want to see what's going on first. I'm just not gonna say, okay, this person is walking in the streets, naked, therefore throw them in jail. Let's see what's going on first. You know what I mean? Are they having a breakdown? Did they take something bad? What's going on? You see what I'm saying? Let's get the context first. Now, if they're a person who's walking the street naked with a knife, threatening kids and stuff like that, yeah, we're gonna have to, there are times where sometimes violence has to meet violence. You gotta tackle them, but get them help. You know what I mean? Like, hey, what's going on? Get their social worker or get a social worker to speak to them, see what's happening, and then get them into a care facility to take care of them. That's what I think.
The question was more like, if a person is addicted to the F drug, and like they're living on the street, would you force institutionalize them? And they all said no.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. I would send social workers out there to talk to them and convince them to get them in, because once you force them, it's not going to work. Because we've seen that happen before. If you force me,
we have tons of programs where they go and try to convince them. It's the problem has only we're trying that out. That's already where we're at. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
and we spend
We're trying it, and it doesn't seem it doesn't seem to be working.
No,
So
the problem is worse and worse and worse and worse.
I will have to see what's going on in I'll have to see what's going on in California, because I don't live
there.
there.
The videos, by the way, it's the same concept in Kensington. I don't know if you've seen the Kensington, Pennsylvania open drug market. Like they have tons of social workers and people, and they have these communities where you can go and work out. And it's like, bro, like it's still, the problem has only gotten worse. There's a couple places in the U.S. where it looks worse than, like, I don't know. I wasn't born in this country. Like, I've never seen some shit like this. Like, I honestly have never seen some shit like this.
I mean, yeah. So there are ways that we can look at to see what we can do to help this out, right? To see how we actually help these people and get them off the street. But we do know that just forcing them in a facility is going to bounce back. They're going to get back out again. So forcing them in there is not working, or didn't work. Talking to them right now, I don't live in California, so I don't know how it works. But we have to come up with a way to help these people out, because if none of what we're saying working, what do we do at that point? We got to figure out a way, right? So I don't think we should throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Sure.
Trill, you're gonna be my what's up, Trill? I'm gonna get out here soon because I've been here for 2 hours. But what's good, Trill? What you have to say?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to just anything done with the government doing anything is that we lack the political will, and a lot of failures that he's describing is actually the failure of the Reagan Revolution. It's the failure of neoliberalism. It's the failure of the Chicago school where he gets most of his ideas from. So it's like when we talk about things like government innovation, like government has been innovating for generations. The post office is a prime example of government innovating to meet the needs of the people. Amtrak is another example of the government innovating to meet the needs of the people. The problem is we keep getting people in the way, saying like, hey, we don't want the government to do anything because they can't do anything, because they can't do anything right, ignoring all the times where American government specifically has done everything right. Ignore the fact that we actually have had the best school system, public school system, government run, right, in the world for decades, until the neoliberals came in and said, yeah, we don't like this because it gives non-billionaires too much power. And he doesn't know this history because he didn't look it up. He never had Ayn Rand one day and decided, oh, I really like Ayn Rand. That's usually how these things work. So I think if he actually spends more time looking up all the good things the government has done and how the neoliberal era destroyed all of it, and now we're basically in the late stage though, where we're about to see the education system completely blow up, and then the private sector has yet. The whole charter school system is a complete sham, a complete scam. They're not even doing better than public schools were doing like 10 years ago. This is not that good of a system. It's just putting a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. And they're like, yeah, but it's slightly better. Yeah. Anyway, I'm about to ramble on, but yeah.
But Trill, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
The two examples you bring up are Amtrak, which loses $1 billion a year, right? Like they have a massive.
I'm gonna stop right there. The government's not supposed to make money, so it doesn't lose. It does not lose billions a year. It spends billions a year. Again, serving the people. That's the point. It's not supposed to make a profit. It's not even supposed to turn. It's not even supposed to break even. It's supposed to serve the people. Period.
I don't know. So basically, you excuse the government for however much money they take from us.
It's not an excuse.
It doesn't matter.
It's literally its function. It doesn't take. Right?
It does. You brought up Amtrak and
those are your taxes.
Okay, but you also brought up USPS. USPS costs more than an Amazon or UPS or FedEx. It's literally like a worse service
today. Yeah, because they've been
for decades now.
They've been
not just today, for decades.
It. They've been
what do you mean they're dismantling?
They've been trying to dismantle the post office for I don't know how long.
That part is true. That part is true. The post office has been raided and dismantled for a while. As a matter of fact, the post office was
inefficient.
The post office was actually in the black before the Iraq war.
Yeah, you should look up
these services are
2006.
inefficient.
No,
They're
it's
not
not
No, they're
efficient
not.
services.
The services are
No,
actually
that's not
very
true.
efficient. The post office actually has a very efficient service because they go places where FedEx and UPS won't go.
But no, but that's not even it though. The reason why on paper it looks bad is because in 2006, Republicans passed this bullshit bill that made the post office pre-fund all of its retirement
Retirement.
obligations decades in the future. No one does that. Not even the private sector does it. Everyone does pay as you go. They pay a certain amount per year to go towards the retirement, and then eventually it pays out when people retire. They say no, you have to fully fund it now. Why they do that? Because they wanted to hobble the post office. Matter of fact, and I'll take even further. Before that happened, right? Republicans, I think during the Reagan era, it was Reagan era. They took the post office out of the budget, right? They said no, you're no longer going to be funded by American taxpayers. You have to basically self-fund yourself. So that's when the post office became basically a public business, basically. Right, but it's still controlled by the Senate. It answers to but it's still controlled by Congress. It still has an answer to Congress, right? But here's another thing that they don't tell you though, right? Even though it was taken off the government budget, like as it is not funded by taxpayers, I'm trying to remember exactly what it's like, but basically, its budget is still included to help the government budget look better. So they include it to make the budget look good, but they exclude it from other charts to show that look, it's not funded. So it's just like this.
I get what you're saying.
Again, Republicans made up because again they want to dismantle it. They want to privatize the post office. And if you look at the history of the post office, you actually find that the private sector actually could not compete with the post office. That's why they're dismantling it, because they feel like they can finally compete with it now.
At what point could they not compete with the post office? What are you talking about?
You need to look up the Pony Express. The Pony Express was a private competitor that tried to do what the post office was doing, like back in the 1700s or whatever, and they failed. Like they tried, they got close, but they couldn't turn a profit. So the government was able to serve the people. Yes, and anything, and the founding fathers knew that yes, it does not turn a profit, but they realized that having a literate and well-connected people was more important and more beneficial than basically making billionaires more profitable. So they traded billionaire profits. I'm rather the equivalent of it at the time. So there were no billionaires in like the 1700s or whatever. But yeah, they traded rich people's profits for serving the people. Right. So again, the government, the post office has never been a profitable merger. It was never meant to be, and it still is never meant to be. That's why that's why that argument is bullshit. Government does not turn profit. It does not break even. It's not about what it needs to serve the people.
It's not about it turning a profit. It's like how much does it cost to
that's your
perform the
argument.
service? No,
Yes,
my argument.
no,
that's not my argument. My argument is how much it's cost efficiency. It's if I take $10 and I give it to Amazon or FedEx versus $10 and I give it to the USPS, what gives me the better service? And what I see.
Well, it depends.
USPS does not.
USPS.
No,
USPS
it's
does.
inefficient.
I'm sorry. You're right. Today it doesn't, because again, it's been dismantled to the point where it's no longer efficient. It used to be extremely efficient. Matter of fact, it got so efficient they were actually looking for new services to provide. They're actually looking to. They've been trying to electrify their fleet since like the early 2000s. That's why they had to put in that bullshit poison pill, that 06 bill to make them pre-fund all their obligations, because they had to do something to slow down the post office because it was too damn good.
Look, don't get me wrong. If the post office wants to, if the USPS wants to employ a bunch of robots and give me my package for 20 cents on the dollar, like go for it. I'm not against necessarily USPS. I'm just in favor. I would choose every time a private corporation to deliver my package when I order
That's
it.
an ideological decision, though. It's not. It's not.
It's a cost. It's a rational decision.
But hold on.
Because the post office used to be cheaper than the private competitors.
Hold on. Can pause for me real quick? But Jorge, you understand that the only reason why the USPS is not quote unquote as good as FedEx and UPS is because the Republicans forced them to fund their obligations before the like that no one else does. It forced them to do something that even FedEx and UPS don't do in order for them to stay profitable. Like, you understand that's what happened.
Not the only reason.
What's the all right, so what is the reason?
Yeah, USPS has a universal service obligation. So like you said earlier, they need to, if you select them for a remote delivery, they have to do it because it's a service obligation that they have because they are government.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but it inflates cost. That's why they cost more, because what ends up happening is that they deliver to these remote areas.
Jorge, the issue is they were doing that before the Republicans passed that law and were still in the black. They were still doing better than Amazon and FedEx.
So what's the law? Like, just so I can look into it. What's the law then that the Republicans passed?
Give me a second.
And the law is what? That they have to self-fund?
No, it was they had to pre-fund they had to pre-fund their retiree benefits, basically. It's called the 2006 Postal Accountability and Enforcement Act. It mandated that a USPS pre-fund over 75 years of future retiree health benefits within a 10-year period. No business does that. But the Republicans forced the USPS to do that. So of course,
I see it.
Not a shortfall.
And not only that, they put in Louis DeJoy, who is a private. I forget if he worked for FedEx or UPS, whichever one. But obviously, if you put in a private competitor to join the USPS, obviously his intent is not to make the post office better. No, his intent is to help it decline. That's his, because he's a businessman. He doesn't want the post office to compete with him. No, he wants to get rid of the post office. So, like, the fact that the Republican put in again a private competitor, like, why do you think it obviously is to be dismantled? They've been doing everything they possibly can to dismantle the post office, and people don't see that as sabotage. They see it as, oh well, I guess the post office just can't compete. No, the private sector can't compete. That's why they're doing this, because they can't compete.
But the private sector had already had these policies with forced pensions and health obligations to their employees,
but not pre-funded 75 years before in advance. They have to pay 80 years in advance.
Yeah, not pre-funded. This honestly seems like, to be fair to you, like, yeah, this seems egregious. Like, I don't understand why they would do this, to be honest. But it's also like the private sector does.
Come on, Jorge.
No,
you know why
sure, I'll take you. Hey, bro, I'm agreeing. I'm saying, like, this is a good point. Like, I didn't know this, so thank you for showing me this. But I'm also saying that the private sector also has to fund, not 75 years. That's crazy, obviously, but there is an element of this that exists in the private sector as well, where they have to.
It's not that, but there's a difference between having to pay, pension and stuff like that, and like a normal private sector type of way. And then having to pay 80 years in advance. That's complete. That's like paying, like come on. So you know why? Like, it's obvious right there. You're just refusing to accept it.
No, I accept. I concede. This is ridiculous. 75 years is insane. Like, they should. I can't believe they would pass this. This is like a really dumb idea. So I concede that point.
It's a brilliant idea. It's an excellent idea if your intent is to dismantle the post office.
Sure. I concede it. You're right. I don't disagree with that.
All
right. So next time you get in a debate,
hey guys, I gotta
admit. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I just gotta go ahead and tell you, I gotta start winding down and getting out of here. I've been on for 2 hours 25 minutes, and I said I had a hard cutoff at 2 hours, so I'm 25 minutes over. But hey guys, I do appreciate y'all for being here. I do gotta go. I ain't gonna lie, y'all. I gotta go. But y'all come back any time. All right. I do appreciate y'all talking, and we'll talk next time. All right? I'll be on tomorrow, and we'll continue the conversation. All right, guys.
Thank you, man. Nice talking to
All
you
right,
guys.
bro.
No problem.
Good convo. All right, wow.